Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Here we go, Barflies. Welcome to the Barfly Tailgate Show. You already know it's done by Barflies for Barflies and all the other Bears fans out there. Good morning, all of my Barflies in the chat, already waking you up on this beautiful Sunday morning. I got my man C-Dub with me. I don't know if you guys went with us last, I believe it was Thursday. We did a little show for C-Dub trying to get him over here for a Bears game this year, and it was a great night. Mr. Shorty, who's in the chat, he was the host that night. It felt a little weird being in the passenger seat, I'm not going to lie, but it's great to see you. It's great to see you, Chris. How you doing this morning, brother?
I'm doing great, mate, and I might as well get the elephant out of the room and talk about Thursday night. I am the only person in the whole fucking world who somebody puts on a show which is actually about them and for them, but doesn't actually turn up and get on the show himself. I completely slept through my alarm. I apologise, fellas, but all I can say is that I am so humbled about all the kind words everybody said and all the effort what people put in, and people taking time out of their evening just to talk about little me. I don't get why, but honestly, I'm so humbled and appreciative. Like people like Foster Cover, and who's just got out of his way, and one guy put in over like $99. A guy called Nick, and it was so nice, mate. Like my ego's just gone from about there to there within a span of 24 hours, and I'd really just like to thank everybody who just even if you just put a dollar in, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It was just about people giving up the time, and I love everybody who are on that show, and I love everybody in the chat who said some such nice comments. So I just can't wait when we all meet up in Chicago, man, because it's going to be one hell of a night, I'm telling you. But I just want to get that out of the way, man, because that was such a nice thing for you all guys to do, and I just want to say I'm very appreciative of Mr. Shorty setting us up in the first place, and he's an absolute dude. But yeah, thanks to everybody just for taking a bit of time out of the schedule and helping this short, dim-witted, middle-aged guy from Yorkshire. So hopefully I'll see you all in Chicago, man, and we'll be having it.
Yeah, it was a great show, man, and it was a blast to be on there. Mr. Shorty coming with a bunch of facts, and Nomad, it was great to talk to him. I had heard him on the other shows and stuff, but to actually be on a show with him was really cool. And a lot of the Barflies came through. Foster came through. Sounded like Randy Savage in there, snapping into us at Jim. Triple R was on there, and he was great, coming with a lot of insight and the way he sees things. I think PJ was in there with us, and of course my man KB, who, by the way, KB and Jordan are on their way. KB texted me probably 15 minutes before show and was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna hop in the shower real quick, but I'm on my way." And I was like, "Well, just hop in when you get, KB's got to look fresh. He's not going to just come out anywhere." And and Jordan, who I just mentioned, just popped in. So Good morning, Jordan. You didn't miss much other than Chris doing his introduction. So you came in at perfect timing. How you doing, man? Good morning.
Hey, good morning, AC. Good morning, Chris Watts, my man over the
How you
pond. How we doing?
I'm doing great, mate, and thanks for the kind comments, mate. Last week and last month about my dad. So it was great seeing you on the network, mate, last week, and it's great that you joined us today. Because between me and AC, we know a bit, but not as much as you do. So it's always
Stop
awesome to have you on, mate. It's always I'll caress your ego, mate. That's all I'm doing.
No, I mean, I'm sure everybody's got an ego, but I don't know shit. I'm just as lost as all you are. It's okay.
Oh, I don't know about all that, man. You know a little bit.
Good morning, Chad. Good morning, AC. And forgive me, are we getting KB this morning or?
KB is on
We
his
are,
way.
yeah.
He texted me. I just told the chat. He texted me about 15 minutes before showtime and said, "Hey man, I'm hopping in the shower. I'll be on there as soon as I can." So
I get it. I've got to have all the artificial lighting because no joke, it's dark outside in California right now.
yeah, it's like what 6 a.m. or what time is it?
It's 7 over here. Sun's not up yet, so
Man, that's well. I do appreciate you getting up with us this morning, man.
Yeah.
We got this list of free agents. The Bears made some moves. They seem to have been smart and calculated with their moves. They're not overpaying people just to have a name in the building. It seems, which is nice to see, and a breath of fresh air. If I'm completely honest, because even though there's guys, the Bears fans, they know the names, and even I had some guys that I wanted and I knew the name and I was like, yeah, I'd like to see him on the team. But Poles is setting this team up to be successful now and in the years to come, which is beautiful to see because with our previous regime, Ryan Pace, he would pay guys, but he got us in trouble later down the road. And that's why we ran into the issue we had last year where we had the most dead cap in the entire NFL because he just had to cut ties with those guys, But it's really nice to see. So I think what I'm going to do, I got the list here in front of me. It's why I keep looking down. Jordan, I'll let you talk about one of, if not your favorite free agent, and then we'll all talk about him. Chris, I'd like you to do the same, and then I'll kind of run through the list. There is one player that I'd like to save for KB when he comes in, and I'm sure you guys can guess who that is.
yeah, I won't use them even though I'd like to, but I won't.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan, Jordan. You were definitely you were an excellent addition to that interview that we had with him. There were still some questions that I wish I would have asked. So hopefully KB can work something out. We can get him on maybe after the draft, before the season sometime. We can have another interview with
I mean, I'd like to say we did miss, C-Dub on the call, but I do feel like KB, myself, and you, Aaron, we did our best to manifest and sit there and like pull the rope and go, hey, and come on over, you know what to do. Come be a Chicago Bear, and it worked.
Yeah, we were definitely pitching hard to him. So, Jordan, if there's someone that you want to talk about first, and we'll kind of follow you up. And
I will certainly answer the question with the Chicago Bears signing, and I'll throw a little bit of a loop. And by all means, you don't have to oblige, but I did want to see if maybe, and we can do it even when KB comes on, if there was any free agency winners or losers outside of the Bears that maybe you wanted to talk about, because I've kind of got feelings and ideas on those two about maybe, hey, I liked X signing by the Patriots, or hey, I thought that this team sucked, or I hated this move. So I'm always available to talk about that stuff as well, because I'm NFL plus Bears. But specifically related to the Bears, my favorite move, it's got to be Nate Davis. I don't know. I think KB, when we talked on that show with Andrew after he had left, we talked about free agents. I think I waxed poetically about Nate Davis. This is a guy that I'd been talking about, my ideal free agent offensive lineman that they could pick up at guard for months now. I love everything that the Titans were doing under John Robinson and Mike Vrabel. And Nate Davis is a guy that's got enough power. He's kind of a squatty body. So he sits his ass lower in his stance. So he anchors pretty well, has a natural win in the leverage game. But for being such a big and powerful guy, he's actually pretty darn nimble on the move. And they ran, I know everybody thinks Derrick Henry Titans and that they were just running gap scheme, and they've actually transitioned a lot to zone. A lot of those big Derrick Henry runs are him finding the lane or cutting it back on those wide zones and then just being one-on-one with the safety. And that's where he was just running him over and then going for 65. So, I mean, I've posted quite a few clips of Nate Davis on my Twitter. You can find any type of film room on him. And I mean, I know, not to do a shameless plug, but I mean, Sanjit T did a great job on YouTube talking about Nate Davis and showing some of his highlights. And so his pass game needs a little bit of work. It's not awful. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for a mauler the way that Tevin Jenkins was in the run game, Nate Davis is your guy.
Well, go ahead, Chris, and you tell us your thoughts about Nate Davis, and then I'll try to follow it up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy about the signing because, you know, O-line is to me is up there with the defensive line, which we need to start getting right this year, really. And yeah, I've heard that he's a really good run blocker. Like Jordan said, his pass blocking needs a bit of work on. But I was just interested because where do you reckon Travis Jenkins is going to play then? If he's going to play, which guard is he going to play? Is he going to play left or right? And does that mean Jenkins is going to go to right tackle?
It's a great question. I think that if I were Ryan Poles, I'm not. I would stop moving Jenkins around. I think I just think, I mean, I'm you guys know me. I'm the biggest Tevin Jenkins fan that you're going to find, and I'm certainly biased. So I'm trying to take that out of it. To me, I don't see why you want to keep creating this turbulent career for Tevin Jenkins, where it's left tackle, but now your back's got to mess up, and well, no, now you're a right tackle. Wait, nope, sorry, you're a right guard. Oh, sorry, it's another year now. You're a left guard. It doesn't make sense. So to me, I would try Nate Davis at the left guard. If for some reason, and you know, this is not new. If you have offensive linemen that say they cannot play on the other side, it's like trying to write with the other hand. So in this case, if Nate Davis says, "Look, I can't play the left. I'm trying, but I'm natural at the right." And you don't have a right tackle. I'd try Tevin at the right tackle. I've always said I know Danny Shimon and a few other residents on the Barroom Network feel like he's better at a guard, and sure, he showed good at a guard. But to me, I think that. I've always said I think Tevin can play right tackle. That's what he showed in college. I don't think the length's an issue. I think he's got the athleticism. So I think right tackle Chris is an option, but I also think he's always said he'd like to play on the left side. And sure, I know he wants to be a left tackle, but he may be open to a guard. And I think that's the thing is we'll wait and see. But I think that he sticks at right guard.
Yeah. Chris kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. That was the question I was going to ask: is there going to be shuffling along this offensive line? And I mean, we saw it year after year with Lovie Smith. It seemed like he was always shuffling guys in and out. And we saw a guy in Kyle Long who had all the potential. They continued to move him around and really kind of, if the injuries hadn't happened, it really kind of shortened his career a little more, in my opinion. And I'd hate to see that happen all over again with Tevin Jenkins. I wouldn't mind seeing him at tackle, and I think I'd like him better on the right side. I know he sees himself as like you said, a left side, possibly a left tackle, and I'm wondering if that has to do with the money aspect of it.
I guarantee
he did say he sees himself as a tackle even last year in press conferences when they just straight up asked him, do you enjoy guard or would you rather be a tackle? How do you see yourself, blah, blah, blah. And he really said, you know, I see myself as a tackle still who can play guard, which is, you know, in this league, you have to have that ability to play multiple positions because they just don't have the roster size to keep, you know, too deep on the depth chart at the offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see. And they said a lot last year about we're just going to get the best five out there. So I think this training camp and preseason and stuff like that, they're going to tweak it and just really find the best five and put them out there, which is interesting to see. Chris, I don't know if you had anything else, but Jordan, I did want to touch on some of the tape that you put on your Twitter. It was excellent to see Ben Davis hitting holes and getting up the field. We saw a lot of him being able to, you know, make the crease for the running back, which is excellent for us. But I do want to pause for just a second because our boy, Mr. Fresh and Clean, Mr. KB, just fresh out the shower, do rag on. Good morning, brother.
Yeah,
what's up?
What's going on, baby? You know what I'm saying? Your boy couldn't get on. I woke up, you know what I'm saying, had an issue with the stomach. Was like, all right, remember go use the bathroom real quick. You feel me? And they was like, yeah, no, I'm getting in the shower. You know how I go, man. Young boy Your boy had come on clean, man.
Howdy.
What's going on with everybody?
Howdy.
The boy Jordan on and the boy C-Dub. What's good?
Yeah, we got a full house this morning.
Hey, I was expecting it to come out like just a little small towel and a towel around up top of your head.
Hey, man, I thought about it for a second. You know what I'm saying? Get on here and turn the sex appeal up to 10. You feel me? Get on like, come in like, what's my man name for the one deodorant commercials? Come in, Old Spice.
Old Spice.
But all right, man, what's going on? How y'all boys doing, man? How y'all boys doing?
We're doing pretty good, man. We hit the pleasantries of the morning, and I told the guys what we're gonna do is go around and talk about one free agent that we all liked a lot, and I did save one for you. But the other guys, we just started. Jordan was talking about Ben Davis, the guard that we signed.
Nate Davis.
So, yeah, that one. I'm sorry.
Ben Davis is a high school in Indiana. What you mean?
Losing my shit over here. Well, I never claimed to be a professional. So yeah,
good,
Nate Davis was the guy that Jordan Silvera brought up, and we talked about, you know, his ability to get out in space, and then Chris brought up, you know, is this going to shuffle our offensive line? So if you want to go ahead and hop in your thoughts on this guy and our O-line in general, we'll continue on from there.
Hey man, I was happy to see a lineman signing. You feel me? You seen how all the tackles started going off the board. I was just like, I mean, the McGlinchey one was, nobody's paying that man that much money, bro. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. And then, you know, I was partial to Jawan Taylor because his pass blocking grade was pretty good. You know, he's a really good run blocker coming out of college. I was like, yeah, you know, they could probably get him the right to ship. So once he gets signed to KC, it's like, oh, Orlando Brown. Pretty sure that's gonna be the move. Then that shit don't happen. So you get the Nate Davis sign.
I was really shocked by that move. Of all the teams that I saw Orlando Brown going to, I did not see him ending up in Cincinnati. That seemed like it was a middle of the night signing. Maybe they were talking contract and he was going to hit the road the next day, and the Bengals just were like, we're not going to let you out of this building without a contract. So I think that's how that ended up. But that was a shocker to me, and good for them. I mean, we all saw the Bengals in the Super Bowl, and we knew their biggest issue was offensive line. They've done a lot the last two off seasons to fortify their offensive line. I know this isn't a Bengals show, but
no, but when you get the ability to say, look, I've watched my quarterback get put on his ass and almost killed 2 to 3 years in a row now, and you're going to tell me I get borderline top 10 left tackle for $16 million a year, I'm not letting him walk out the building either.
Yeah.
Right. So then we come to us. Like I said, we see the Nate Davis signing. My impression is he's big, he's strong, he's rather agile. Blocked for Derrick Henry for how many years he's been in the league now? Yeah, I think he's been in it 4. Yeah. So I mean, it's to me it was a good signing, man. It brings into the question what's the move, because you know he primarily played at right guard. He says he can play both, which is what he's supposed to say. You don't just come in and pigeonhole yourself to one position.
Right.
So it makes you wonder what the move is with Tevin Jenkins. I heard y'all talking about he said that he would love to play tackle pretty much. I wouldn't be opposed to it if to give him a shot at right tackle. I'm still praying that we sign another guard. You know, I seen Risner, whatever his name was, still out there. Maybe you take a shot on him to bring him in. But then it calls in also question, if you do have Jenkins at guard, you got Davis at left guard, or however the combination may be, then what comes to Cody Whitehair? Funny story. I remember saying maybe we move Cody Whitehair to center and being basted like a fucking turkey right before fucking Thanksgiving. Oh my God, Ryan, he sucks. He can't play center. Okay, that's fine, bro. But let's be real. He played center for a couple years. Maybe it was out of necessity, but he's played. So it questions what the move is on line, man. Like I said, I still personally want to see one more lineman brought in. Like I said, if it is that kid from the Broncos, then I mean that might signal, you know what I'm saying, a Tevin Jenkins move to tackle. Then it frees up the option to not have to take a tackle at 9. So that's where I'm going with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know I was one of them that was completely against Cody Whitehair being the center, but after we saw Mustafa last year being pushed into Justin Fields' lap consistently, I mean, you've got to have something better, and it almost feels like anything would have been better than that.
The low key, man, I feel like getting the inside of the line is more important right now than tackle. And before I get killed,
No, that's not wrong.
I was gonna say this. My thing is this: he has to step into the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be able to step up into the pocket. Braxton Jones is athletic enough that he can keep whoever the pass rush is coming off the edge. If you decide to go with a Tevin Jenkins or you go with a rookie, I believe they'll do just enough of job to keep him clean in that pocket. It's all about him being able to step up into it, which is something he could not do last year at all. To me, stepping up into the pocket makes you a better passer.
Uh-huh.
You get to set your feet, and then it gives you a strong base. You can throw the ball down the field. It gives you the option to see the whole field. The one thing people cannot say about Cliffs and Fields is the man can feel the fucking rush. He can feel it coming over his shoulder, man. He can feel it coming from his back. So he knows when to bail out the pocket. I think the problem is he knows he needs to be in the pocket. He knows that a good quarterback has to be able to navigate it and step up, which is something he could not do because you have Whitehair getting destroyed. You have Mustafa who can't hold up against a bull rush. And then, you know, you had the rotating door at right guard all damn year. So there's no consistency. You see when Tevin Jenkins was in there, we finally had some type of pass blocking help, but he was still getting better at it. So, yeah, like I said, Shorty said it, man. I almost called him Scrody again. But those passing lanes mean a lot, man. And it all starts with that interior line to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'll piggyback on KB a little bit here. And I mean, this is something that I know it's a throwback, but Jason Peters even talked about it when having to block for Justin Fields is those tackles can adjust their kick step to where essentially you're creating, I think he had called it, and it makes sense, kind of like a boomerang or a tomahawk. He had talked about the different pass set there where essentially I'm opening up my inner hip and kind of giving space for Justin to step up on the inside hip and run out that way. Or alternatively, if, you know, I get a brusher that decides he wants to cut inside, great, Justin, just flip it around the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But exactly what KB's talking about is that last year, I mean, I'd look no further than the Commanders game, the Giants game, any team that had one dude on the interior, the Packers, the Kenny Clark, anybody, it was just ownage of Sam Mustafa. And like I said, Sam Mustafa is probably a really nice guy. I know try hard, did everything he could. But at the end of the day, you needed guards that could sit there and shore up the middle. And that's not, like I said, that's not what Nate Davis's specialty is, but I don't think he's a liability there.
Right.
And I mean, I would hate to say this, I'll knock on all the wood because I love me some Tevin Jenkins, but I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, he ends up, if he's never shown his full health in a season yet, and it's an early season. So, I mean, Nate Davis can go over to right guard the moment that Tevin falls out. And alternatively, too, I'll say this one last thing before we move on to everybody else's free agents, because I know we want to get there. But, you know, Tevin Jenkins never really got a shot at right tackle. He played about a half against preseason against the Kansas City Chiefs and had, I think, one bad rep, and then they moved him to guard and said, that's where you're going to be.
Yep.
And he's been a right tackle throughout college, looked like a right tackle coming into the league. Never showed me any true distinctive tape of the arm length was an issue or that he couldn't handle speed around the edge. And no tackles. But guess what? Orlando Brown doesn't do well with speed around the edge. I mean, so you're going to have different issues with tackles. But I stand by what I said. I don't think you should continue to move Tevin. If right guard's where he's at, stick him there. Right. But if you're going to move him, I would give him the chance at tackle, considering that you don't have a tackle on the board right now. Mm-hmm. And I'll be the first to say I think Braxton Jones acquitted himself well. I was kind of harsh on him. I don't think he was a total stalwart. Sure, he was serviceable as a rookie, and that's fine. But all those people that love Braxton Jones, I don't see why you're sitting here, hitting the panic button on March 19th when you have your starting left tackle in round 5 of the draft, and he was okay. If that was what Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham did in year one, why can't they pull a right tackle in the draft at round 5, round 3? You've seen it in history. You've seen it work. I just say pause for cause on the panic button.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have like 6 picks in the 3rd day of the draft too, so we'll have definitely plenty of swings at it. My only thought is if they do decide to move Tevin to that tackle position, if you're going to move him, leave him there. Like I said earlier, we saw this with Kyle Long where they moved him around year after year. Sometimes he'd start one game at one position and end up at another position. Like you can't.
They've ruined Cody Whitehair's career that way, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So
I was gonna say that seems to be the the benchmark for Bears linemen. You know what I'm saying? Draft somebody early and then move around.
Line? You've never had a good line, so you constantly go. I guess try this one and maybe try this one and
right.
Oh, and then you got Cody Whitehair going. I was a tackle at Kansas State. And then you told me I was going to play center, but then all of a sudden I moved to guard. And well, now I'm back at center because James Daniels here, so he's going to play. Oh no, he's a guard too. Like,
yeah. Well, we'll move on from the offensive line. Nate Davis was a good pickup. We didn't overpay for any of our free agents, which is, as I said at the start, I think a big thing, and it looks really good on this organization to not just throw a bunch of money at somebody because they have a big name and because the experts say that they're a top free agent.
So we still got $20 million in between us and the next team in cap space right now.
Oh, is it that much? I thought it was like 10 between us and the Falcons. Quite a bit.
I seen earlier today, I think it was Over the Cap had tweeted out the Bears had 41. I think the Packers might have 24. And they were number 2 spot. So I don't know unless the numbers was wrong or whatever the case may be, but that's what it was showing. It was a significant gap still.
Well, we don't have to get into it too much, but Aaron Rodgers has again grabbed 2 organizations by the balls this week, and really he's trying to do what he can. He says he doesn't want to be a story, yet he comes out and does this shit every year. So it's a little oxymoronic, if you ask me. But we'll move on and focus on our team, if that's okay. Chris, if you want to give us a free agent that you loved the signing of, and maybe tell us why, and then we'll all give our thoughts on that guy as well.
Yeah, I mean the sort of free agent I really took to is Jermaine Edmonds from the Bills. I just think he's just such a player to fit in the scheme that Eaglefuss wants to play in. I just love how he plays. I think he's great in coverage, and also he can get to the ball quick. He's like 6'5", but also as well he will the defensive captain as well for the Bills. And the Bills have one of the best defenses over the past sort of previous years, really. So I think leadership will bring a lot to his role as well. So very excited about him, man. I think him with TJ Edwards. I think they're 2 hell of a sign. It's a bit like the Bears back in the mid-noughties of Lance Briggs and Urlacher. That's how it feels. It feels like Edmonds will be the one that'll sort of be more in coverage, and then Edwards will be a bit more of like staying in the box and stopping the runs. So Jermaine Edwards, mate, really sort of happy, and also he's really young as well. He's like I think he's like 24. So that's another sort of big sort of tick sign for me is keeping the age down and getting these boys to all grow together as well. So he's my number 1 favorite free agent at the moment.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. We're on Chris on that one, because that was a guy that I liked him in the draft. And I think actually that year in the draft, it was him and Roquan, which one's LB1 and which one's LB2. We ended up with Roquan, and I know at the time I think Shane Marsaw was on our show, on our network, and he was a huge fan of Jermaine Edmonds. So I was like, let me do some research on this kid. Like you said, super young. I think he was drafted when he was 19 or 20. So he's going into his 2nd contract, and he's not even 25 years old. When we first signed him, I was like, well, maybe he'll play the wheel. But the more I've looked at it and the way he can fill the Brian Urlacher role for this defense, I feel like he's perfect for that Mike linebacker. And I saw a ton of clips of him. I know he struggled in coverage early, but it seems like he's the game slowed down for him and he was able to read offenses a little more and knew where his keys were and where he was supposed to be. And I think he really fits that Mike linebacker in this defense. He has the ability to follow a tight end down the field. How many times we saw it with Danny Trevathan where they were like, hey, we need you to go and try and cover this slot receiver. And Aaron Rodgers was like, yeah, you go right ahead. Let me show you what I'm going to do. Drops it right over his head. And I think Tremaine Edmonds gives you that ability to show different looks pre-snap, and is he coming? Is he dropping out? We don't know, but he's got that speed to do the things asked in this defense, and that's a huge signing for me as well. KB, if you want to talk on this one, and then I'll let Jordan finish us up because I'm sure he's got something he's going to wax poetic about this kid as well. Go ahead, KB.
Man, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and keep it brief. It's simple. He's 6'5". Kid runs damn near a 4.4, but it's a 4.5. He's a leader on the defense at 24 right now. He'll be 25 at the beginning of the season. I mean, there's not much to say. He's a missile. He's improved every year that he's been in the league. And to me, there's no reason to complain about that. Yeah, you brought in 2 off-ball linebackers, but at the end of the day, you're shoring up a position. That's what you need to do. And you're shoring up a position with young players. So, I mean, to me, there's not much to really be said about it. It's like you said, the more I've stopped to really sit here and think about it, the more sense it's starting to make. Yeah, I would probably put Tremaine Edmonds in the middle right now. Because if you think about it, some of these defenses that used to give the likes of Aaron Rodgers issues was when Urlacher and them were here. You got to pass over their head. It's kind of hard to throw to a motherfucker right over the middle when he's 6'5" and can keep up with the wide receiver.
I think Rodgers said that himself. You know, one of the biggest defenders he respects was when he had to go against Urlacher, and it was kind of a chess game of Aaron making a call and then Brian making an adjustment, and when the ball snaps, you know, you gotta make that split second decision. And if you got a 4-4 linebacker with arms that itches his knee without bending over, and the guy can just cover space.
Dude can start power forward for the Bulls right now. That's
yeah.
I need folks to understand that. But like I said, bro, to me, there's not really much to bitch about. If you want to complain about, we could have paid Roquan, they complain. That's fine. Like I said, Chicago can't have nice things. You got somebody who's 6 foot compared to somebody 6'5" man in your defense in the middle. It's a better scheme fit. Get over it. Cry. Do whatever you got to do. But I love the signing. Really, really good player, really athletic. And like I said, he's going to be a captain and a leader for this defense for many years to come. So pass that shit to Jordan, because I know he's going to drop y'all drop straight facts on y'all ass, bro. So
I'm gonna be the one that cries a little bit. Not really. To me, let me put it this way. If there was a signing that I was least jazzed about, or I felt like it's just all it is really is it's just, look, we're putting all the chips in and hoping that, you know, the roulette game hits on 7. That's what it is. And doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that that's a hell of a gamble. You are trying to, in any free agent deal, you're trying to thread a needle, which is, can I match the value with the perceived output? And at the end of this, I can go like, that was a worthy signing. We either got him at value or at cost. I paid him $12 million a year, and I felt like we got at least that. Maybe we could have been paying him more with how much he's been producing. It's all I'm trying to say is, and this is what it comes down to, is that Edmonds right now, with the new contract he signed, is a top 4 paid linebacker in the league. And whether he's top 4 or not is a different discussion. He's not top 4 to me. He's not even close to top 4 to me. Doesn't mean he can't be. But what it does mean is that you are now expected to perform at a top 4 level. And so threading that needle becomes a lot tighter of a hole to fill because of what I'm paying him and what I'm expecting. And so that's about the only negative thing I'll say about Edmonds. Everything else is coming as positive. I'm well connected to a few Buffalo Bills fans over at Cover One. They were extremely sad to see him go. Edmonds is a weird guy in the sense that he was much maligned by a lot of Bills fans that don't know ball, where they would look at him and go, where are the sacks and the interceptions, but don't understand that, as you said so astutely, KB, you've got people like Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and others that say, look, it's hard to pin a ball on my tight end in the seam or on my slot, big power slot, when I've got this 6'5" linebacker with, condor wingspan that can just flip one of those levers out and all of a sudden he's flicking the ball away. So
Right.
that is where he's going to be best. That's where he's going to be a weapon. And I don't even like to totally talk about the Roquan thing because it's just so yesteryear. It didn't work out. It's fine. And I mean, I'll touch on Roquan a little bit with this. Roquan made a ton of sense when we drafted him. When you're in that 3-4 Fangio scheme,
yes, sir.
Big bodies ahead of him. Roquan's this guy that'll fill and spill. He's got sideline to sideline speed,
Right.
And was shifty enough with his diminutive figure to not get caught up on blocks. As soon as you saw a switch to this new even front scheme where the defensive line wasn't great, all of a sudden Roquan couldn't do much because he had to backdoor everything and trying to use the speed to get around. It just makes all the sense in the world. You're moving to an even front from that Fangio scheme to this. And now you want this big condor, this big linebacker in the middle, presumably. I will say I'm a little interesting by that. I think usually the money tells you where he's valued and where he'd go, which is why I thought you could play him at the will. And to be fair, I'll give myself a little bit of a cheat here. When you watch that Colts tape, it was evident that you could see those linebackers banjo back and forth constantly. If a player motions, you end up swapping the backers, things of that sort. Formation changes from strong side to weak side. You end up seeing them flip. So mid-play, we're talking, I shouldn't say mid-play, we're talking pre-snap. This isn't even like, hey, in the huddle, if he goes here, then we know. We're talking live play. They'll swap in and out. Wow. So in that respect, I don't think that you're going to see him strictly as a Will or strictly as a Mike. But I also say I shouldn't be too surprised. I feel this is not a bad thing. It's the last time the Chicago Bears are relevant. To me, everything we've seen with this organization down to last year, down to how they're running it now, is they're just trying to rebuild the Lovie Smith Bears. And I think you probably all heard me say that when Eberflus was hired last year. I said, like, the one thing that this was is George McCaskey could have gone out and found anybody. And what he did is he was like, well, we've been bad for a long time. What is the last memory of when the Bears were solid and I could sleep easy at night knowing they were competitive? And so that means I'm going to go hire the acolyte from Lovie Smith, which is in this case, Flus comes from Rod Marinelli from Lovie Smith. And then I'll hire this GM that, that's who he's going to go with, Eberflus, and we're going to try to rebuild it the same way, which is why I think you saw a return specialist in Velus Jones picked in the third round, the way that Devin Hester was picked in the second. You've just kind of seen it just re-echo in this echo chamber of what it's supposed to look like. So that's a long way to say that I think KB's on point. Edmonds is a guy that likely will play Mike in this scheme. But again, I don't think you'll see him playing some weak side, but the big thing there is when you're talking about playing that Tampa 2 coverage where you need that middle runner dropping out, you're going to want Tremaine Edmonds being that guy more than TJ Edwards.
Yeah. I liked both of these signings. The only thing that it kind of hurt my heart a little bit because I bought the Sanborn jersey and now A, he's possibly the Sam linebacker, and B, he gave up his number even to let his boy TJ Edwards have it.
Oh, wow. So, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he gave up his 57. So now my jersey is null and void, and I looked up the jersey insurance to see if maybe I could get a replacement or something, and the player changing numbers is not covered under the insurance. So
that's a bummer.
So I just got a Sanborn. I mean, I'll still rock it. It's I love Sanborn. I love the
should.
way he plays,
you always AC. You'll always be able to say this is the one of the few bright spots of a really shitty season. And so this is Jack Sanborn, and when Jack Sanborn hits and he becomes the greatest linebacker of all time, you get to go, well, I was there from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. I got the rookie number. KB, is there anyone at all on the free agency list that you were like, man, I really like this signing. I think it's going to do great for us. I don't know if you were fired up about any of these, like really, but if you want to go ahead and tell us who your favorite free agent was, and we can all talk about that guy, maybe.
And the immortal words of Dave Chappelle on a very, very successful show. My pick is Colin Powell. Wrong thing. Man, listen, bro. Everybody knows, man. Everybody knows. And with that being said, I'm going to cheat a little bit because I got two. But of course, it's my cousin, man. Of course, Andrew Billings. Folks can talk however they want to talk, man. He might not be here. Who knows, man? Right now, he's here. You feel me? And I'm over the fucking moon. I know Jordan was happy. My boy AC was happy. Chris even reached out. I know he was happy. It brings a different dynamic to a team that you already got love in. It gives you the dynamic of saying, dog, it's like going to a high school game or going to a college game to see this person. But instead, he's playing on the fucking team that I love to watch play football. So I'm ecstatic. He like I said, I text him, of course, hey man, everybody's happy. And you get I was expecting this text message. So, like I said, bro, and I credit AC, I credit Jordan, man, because like I said, and even Chris, I credit you too. You know what I'm saying? I know you missed the show that day. You had your reasons, but we literally beat this man over the head with a bat, telling him he needs to sign with Chicago. So, I'm happy. Like I said, you can't get any more excited than what the family was. The group chat was going crazy. Facebook was going crazy. Twitter was going crazy. I got like 1 million follows off of just saying shit. Big cuz saw with the T. I was like, bro, this what the hell? So like I said, I'm excited. To me, it's a really big move. Not only because he's my cousin, but the simple fact that we have a starting one tech who can also play the 3 if he's needed to. My cousin, like I said, he has pass rush ability. He's just asked to do other things. So it's him being on the D-line is going to help free up Edmonds, TJ Edwards, goddamn Jack Sanborn, because my cousin demands double teams, bro. It's as simple as that. You demand a double team. You got 3 dudes. You can fill, you can scrape down. You can do whatever you want to do. So like I said, I'm excited about that. Now, because he was the obvious one, I'll say my other one that was a not so obvious one, because I was in love with this signing. And it's funny because it's a backup. PJ Walker. I was thrilled with this move. PJ Walker was one of my favorite players playing in the XFL, of course, coming from Temple. He's still under 30. And he plays a similar style of game to what we see with Fields, man. And that, to me, that's what's most important, because you get a player that you don't have to necessarily change everything around for, because he has the same type of play style. Now, he might not have the arm strength of Justin Fields. He might not have the speed of Justin Fields, nor the size. PJ Walker's a tad bit on the smaller side. But the man knows your number one wide receiver. He will more than likely come in here and pick up the offense, because he's literally had to pick up offenses everywhere he goes. He has to pick up an XFL playbook. Then he has to go play for the I think he was it the Colts at first. He stopped. I
think he did play in.
He stopped at the Colts first, and then he goes to Carolina. So he's picking up playbooks. This is somebody I would love to see stick around for the Bears for, you know what I'm saying, for more than just a year. I'd love to see him stick around until, you know what I'm saying, they draft somebody else, or whatever the case may be, so we can have a younger style of quarterback. Like I said, PJ Walker's only 28, dog. If he starts the year at 29, then so be it, but he's still under 30. Now, like I said, you're not necessarily like, oh, we have to break the playbook and we can't run the read option because we got, you know what I'm saying,
right?
Fucking what's my Nate, whatever his name is, whoever the fucking one quarterback was, everybody didn't like. You know what I'm saying? So we can still run the read option. We can still, you know what I'm saying, do RPOs and all that matter, and have the quarterback be a factor. So the obvious pick, of course, my cousin. My non-obvious one, PJ Walker.
Yeah, man, that's definitely some good points. I met Andrew in Cleveland. We had a great time. He drove us through the city to get us back to our vehicles. We had a little chat I think he had a Tahoe or some big truck. He got a big truck.
Yeah,
but, it was really nice to meet him and his wife. Great dude. We got a picture together, of course, before we all left. It was a great time. So to see him in Chicago, I'm fired up about it. My wife's fired up about it. She's already like, well, when we going to go see him? You know, and we're already talking about we got to find out what number he's going to wear so we can get a jersey because you know I'm going to rock a Billings jersey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a great signing for us as a it almost felt like, and I told you this, KB, I know he's not my family, but it felt like someone in my family signed with the Chicago Bears, and it was just a great feeling. And the PJ Walker signing is underrated as well because we talked about it all year last year. You know, if Fields goes down, if Fields misses time, you got Trevor Siemian backing up, which he's fine, I guess, but he can't. You have to change your offense for him. You want a guy behind him where he can keep the same offense, much like the Baltimore Ravens do. If Lamar goes down, they've got a guy behind him who can run a similar type offense. They don't have to change everything for him.
Exactly.
And I think PJ Walker fills that in. And if we can grab a 7th round quarterback, which we just got a compensatory pick, or even an undrafted free agent that's got some athletic ability that we can bring in, let him be on the practice squad or whatever it may be, I feel like that would be good moves for the future and for the now. And when you say PJ is not even 30 yet, that's good information. I know he'd been a journeyman. He's been all over the country and, like you said, picking up different playbooks and learning different coaching schemes and stuff like this. And he's got a connection with DJ Moore and a running back that we just signed, Dante Foreman. So I'll let Chris, is there anything you want to speak on this? And I'm just going to let Jordan finish this all up because he does a really good job of bringing all our thoughts together and kind of having a big conclusion on all of these. So I think he's perfect to finish all these thoughts up if he doesn't mind.
Cool. No, I'd have to say just a massive congratulations, KB, man. Like as I was watching the show on the show you did on Thursday, which unfortunately I managed to sleep through, even though the show were about me, like a dickhead. Yeah, so cheers to coming on that show, KB. Even though I'm up there.
Hey man, it's all baby.
That's only me, innit? That's all me, man. But yeah, I'm watching the show and I think he got like the news that he got signed by the Bears, joining the show, and it was awesome seeing your reaction, KB. It was absolutely beautiful. But no, I think he's going to be a great player for us, man. I think his time's coming. Like when you were chatting to him the other month, he was telling he's starting since that he's gone to the Raiders, he's had a few injuries, and then with the COVID thing. So he's had to sort of fight for his place now. I think he'd be a great asset to the team, and he's one of them positions what we're desperate for talent in. So really, I feel about PJ Walker. There's more or less the same what you guys have said. He can play the same system what Fields usually plays. I mean, when Fields were injured last year and Simeon came in with against New York, the offense, they had to alter the offense so much just because he's such a different sort of quarterbacks compared to Fields. So it just makes sense to get a guy who's got similar talent to what Fields has. So I'm just buzzing, mate. It's going to be awesome that first Bears when we go and see the Bears, man. And and Andrew Billings comes out, we'll all be there, haven't it? It'll be absolutely brilliant, mate.
Okay. Well, I guess as you said, AC, I'll try my best to wrap it up. One, KB, as you know, Billings, Andrew, I was excited as hell. I haven't had the pleasure as AC and yourself to sit in the Tahoe with him and talk, but I also, you guys know me, I don't blow smoke, I don't bullshit. So when we had him on the pod, I was honest. I said, look, Hedge is a top 40 player coming out of Baylor. No real reason why you slipped. And then you fell into a bad spot where, you're behind Geno Atkins and, Domata Pecco and all these other guys that you're just not going to be able to probably beat out. But it's always a very rewarding feeling. And this is kind of how I felt with the Nate Davis thing. And, I feel very much this way when your scouting eye aligns with the leadership of the team that you root for. That's always a really fun and unique and enjoyable experience. And I think that's what we had here, where I looked at Andrew and was like, hey, your game makes a lot of sense in Chicago. This is exactly what you're saying. And I know that, I'm not even here to spend much time on the haters, Don Burr or somebody else. But
fuck him.
The reality is, let me put it in ink right now for everybody. You don't give 1 year $3.5 million to a third or fourth string D lineman that doesn't play and doesn't have a lot to give to special teams, you pay $3.5 million on a 1 year as a legit chance to give a guy an opportunity to prove himself and earn more money. So I think what I will say a little bit is I don't think I'm going to probably get my dream of seeing Andrew play the 3 tech, and that's okay. I mean, in some ways, it's always about maximizing a skill set, which kind of goes back to the Tevin thing. Is Tevin could be a fantastic right tackle, and I think he can play there, but he maybe always be a better guard. And so that's kind of the Peter Skoronski thing and so many other players. But the idea is if a player is better at one position, play him there because that's where he's better at. And so I think absolutely Billings is your nose tackle this year. We're not, flirting around with guys that are 5 techs and asking them to play 1 tech like an Angelo Blackson or, any Mike Pennell who looks super thinned out. So you have Billings who can legitimately play the 1 tech, but I'd love to see him get some opportunities and chances to show his explosiveness and show his game over a guard, just whooping their ass at 3 tech. So we'll see if that happens. But I'm at KB. I'm super excited. You let Andrew know that, he's got a fan of me, and I'm so happy to see him get that bag.
Yes,
a modest bag, but it's a chance. Again, it's a chance for more opportunity down the road.
Yes, it is.
And he would be doing us a disservice if he didn't. Again, within reason, don't want him to get cut, but he can at least hop on and do a couple shows during this season to give us quarterly update.
He knows.
Like,
he
hey,
knows.
and no specifics, but like, hey, I watched Justin Fields just put the nasty spin move on Eddie Jackson in practice, and something crazy, or anything like that. But it'll be fun. I'm excited to have him. I can only imagine what you're feeling, KB. Is like you said, you get to go to the games of the team you root for and rock the jersey of your cousin, and he's going to come up to you, coming out of the tunnel and things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then on the back end of it, since you cheated a little bit and gave us a second one, which I don't mind. PJ Walker, to me, I'm a big Dorian Thompson-Robinson fan. That's DTR out of UCLA. And I know a lot of people talk like, well, we were just going to get DTR in the 6th or 7th. I mean, I'd be glad to be wrong, guys, but I think
he's going to go higher than that, bro.
Yeah, I think DTR is going to be like a 3rd or 4th round pick.
Wow.
So I don't know if he'll be there. And the part of the thing is remembering Justin Fields is still a young quarterback, and putting a guy like DTR doesn't give you any leadership at the position behind Justin to fall on. Instead, what you're trying to do is say, well, I hope I get a talented guy like DTR, and then in 2 or 3 years, I can flip him for a pick. And I understand that's 4D chess, and that's what we want. I'm not against that. But what PJ Walker provides is a guy that's been around the league, sat behind Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett. He's been in Carolina, which wasn't a great situation, but they've had Teddy Bridgewater there, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. He's
Cam came back.
It's not great, but it's the idea that he's had experience with different offensive minds, different players. And then, he's went to the XFL and was the best quarterback in the XFL there, and which gave him an opportunity to springboard back into the league and not just get back to the league, but stay back in the league. And then when given an opportunity with the Panthers, acquitted himself very well. So it's actually funny because to me, the guy that I think DTR reminds me a lot of because of the more diminutive stature is PJ Walker. You were talking about a KB. He's a smaller guy, diminutive, but I'll push back, and not that you were totally against it, but I'll push back on one thing, which is that the arm strength is not a problem with PJ Walker. He's got a cannon of an arm, and I mean, it's just an example, but the easy one to point to is there was a Hail Mary last year. He was with the Panthers where, I mean, look, if you don't believe in the arm strength, just look there. And yes, he's having to throw his whole body into it. But again, that's not what we're talking about. I'm not talking about how easy can he throw a 60-yard ball. It's just, does he have the prerequisite 65-yard ball when the game's on the line? Can he get it down to the end zone? And yes, he can. I mean, that's kind of the Baker thing. Is Baker's a small guy, but he still finds a way to get it 65 yards down the field, even if he has to, crow hop twice and do it, he can get it there. So he's got the arm strength. He has enough mobility. And I think what this is about too is it's a guy that's a leader who Justin Fields can rely on and bounce ideas off of and help Justin Fields continue to grow into his own as a quarterback beyond what he's already done. Can run the offense if Justin Fields were to go down. And secondly, is not a threat to Justin Fields. Like, I'll give a very brief example is Shane Steichen and the Colts brought in Gardner Minshew. And Gardner's a great competitive quarterback.
Mhm.
I hate the move, though, because you, as the Colts, want to move away from veteran quarterbacks, and you want to go get a rookie. I do not believe that Gardner Minshew is a guy that fits that same role. Gardner is dangerous enough that he can play. He wants to play. He's not. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy that's going to sit there. And I know we saw it with Jalen Hurts, but that's a little bit different. And to be fair, when Jalen was out, Gardner was playing well enough. Like, these are the problems. And I mean, you saw it when he was there in Jacksonville, and they had to ship him out because there was still kind of a competition there that Urban Meyer created between Lawrence. So I think that's the underrated aspect, is you got to find a guy that is comfortable, is not going to push or create friction between your starter and him of, yeah, technically we're competing, but I want your job, and I'm going to try to undercut you where I can. And I think that it's a wise, shrewd signing in a class where the reality is Justin Fields and his physical skill set is not easily recreated.
Yeah.
So if you want to try to run an offense with your backup quarterback that's like Justin, you really don't have a lot of options that are available in the market. And this year, the only ones that would have been available to you would have been PJ Walker, or you're signing Tyler Huntley. And I like Tyler Huntley a lot, to be honest.
I do. I love Tyler Huntley.
Yeah. So like, whether it's Huntley or it's Walker, I think you're fine either way. And they ended up with Walker, and so I'm not against it.
Sure.
Well, I mean, depending on what happens in Baltimore with Lamar, which is baffling to me that this guy is not getting the attention that Aaron Rodgers is getting, that you might have for a year, where you can have Lamar for 4 to 5 years at least, it's really mind blowing. But if he ends up not in Baltimore, Tyler Huntley is the guy that they're going to go after. I don't see them. They're not in a draft position to really draft a guy to come in and be the man. So I think, as far as Tyler Huntley goes, he would be a great fit, obviously, but I think he's kind of got his eyes on the Lamar situation to see what happens there before he makes his decision. I mean, free agency's long, you know what I mean? Some people don't even get signed until after the draft, so it's that'll be something to look out for sure.
And let that be on the record too, that, as you just said, AC, astutely, some people don't sign until after the draft. Andrew Billings was signed before the draft, which even further indicates that this is not some 52nd, 53rd spot on the roster that maybe like I know KB was fired up, but understand, as somebody who also supports Andrew Billings, I was fired up because I get that it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, just because you don't know the name of a player doesn't mean that he's hot garbage and can't play ball. In the same way that just because you know Mike McGlinchey's name, because he was a number 9 pick for the San Francisco 49ers, doesn't mean that he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Right. And that's something that all fans get into, is like, well, I really want Mike McGlinchey, or I want Caleb McGarry because they were first-round picks, not realizing that Josh Nyman's a better tackle today. And you'd be wiser to spend a second-round pick to acquire a guy like him than pay the boatload of money that Mike McGlinchey got. I'll get off my soapbox, but that's the whole issue of people talking about Andrew Billings is, some 2-week player, and he'll be cut before the season. It just drives me nuts.
My other thing on that too, to back up what you were saying, the Cincinnati Bengals wanted to keep my cousin. I need folks to understand this. They wanted to keep him on a multi-year deal. The fact is, he went to Cleveland because Cleveland offered him more money at the time. And then my cousin decided
to play.
And a chance to play. And then he decided to sit out the COVID season for health reasons. So
he said it on here. He had asthma. So he was like, at the time, we didn't know what were contributing factors to COVID or what would hurt that. So I don't blame him whatsoever for sitting out that COVID year either.
Yeah. And I was going to say, and then you had to come back and realize, all right, Cleveland stocked up on players because people decided not to play. So they went out and they got the kid from Atlanta that Atlanta ended up drafting in the first round. I can't remember what his name is, but he was super excited and was cussing on stage. They went out and signed him. Yeah, Tack. They went out and signed him. They already had another defensive tackle. They had Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. My cousin wasn't getting the playing time. He was still trying to work back physically to get himself in shape because he didn't have the resources or the things he needed to keep himself in shape during COVID. So you couple that with everything else going on. So my cousin ended up getting traded I didn't even say traded. He got released, and he wouldn't play for the Dolphins. I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And then he went and got himself in shape and went and played with the Raiders.
And real quick,
And
tell him how he did with the Raiders.
Raiders, man, shut it down. It's one of the top fucking 15 fucking defensive tackles in the league. Stopping the run, dog.
I saw a lot of Raiders fans upset when
And
they let him go.
They were pissed. All over. One of my good friends I used to work with is a Raiders fan. And as soon as it happened, he texted me. He was like, "Bro, I know that's your cousin, but that's a big loss for us because now we're gonna have to find somebody to replace him and do what he was doing on our team, which right now they don't have."
Yeah,
he was that guy. So it is what it is, man.
You're talking about a Raiders defense that is in desperate need of repair and fixing and altering. As Patrick Graham, I was going to say Thomas Graham, that's the corner. As Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator there that took over for his first year there, is trying to retool that defense in his image. And sure, I know everybody thinks of the big names. You got Chandler Jones and Max Crosby on the edge. But the middle of that defense was trying to fill it with guys like Jonathan Hankins and other players of that sort. And Andrew Billings was a guy that, I mean, to be fair, and I'm not even trying to smite your cousin here, I don't even know if he was necessarily brought in as this guy that was going to start and perform. But this is, again, it's the same thing of let all the fans sleep and go, oh, Andrew Billings is this nobody. I think the Raiders fans didn't know who he was. He's this kind of career journeyman because he didn't have the opportunities. You had guys there like John Hankins and others. And Andrew Billings, like the cream that rose to the top, found a way to start and then started, I think, 14 of the 17 games.
Yep.
And talked about, playing 3-tech against Pittsburgh and whooping some ass on that offensive line. And, like, this is what I'm saying is it's just because you don't know the name doesn't mean he's a bad player. Like, and one little thing like, the right tackle, and they did not sign enough offensive linemen. George Fant is still out there. Now, I don't know who that is, so he must be bad. No, George Fant has versatility, can play left tackle, right tackle, was with the Jets, was stepping in for Mekhi Becton. Like, again, just expand a little bit and realize that it doesn't mean that they have to be a first-round pick where you have to know their name for them to be good fits. Nate Davis was a third-round pick out of Charlotte. I know it's not the sexy name. It's not Dalton Reisner, the second-round pick out of Kansas State. Trust the process.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there someone on the list that you want to go over now, Jordan, and then I'll try and pick from the scraps and see who's left to talk about, and we'll go up from there.
I mean, you got an easy one to me because none of us have talked about DeMarcus.
Well, there's one I got my eye on. I'm just hoping he falls to me.
Well, I mean, you're up, right? Because KB gave his cousin and Walker. Chris Watts gave Edmonds, and I gave Nate Davis.
Oh. Yep, absolutely. So Dante Foreman is the guy that I want to talk about. The running back from the Carolina Panthers. We lost David Montgomery. He played excellent for us. He was a leader in and out of the locker room, and I love that guy. But and I think CHGO put this up where they compared their stats with each other. And Dante Foreman's stats from last year in Carolina were on par or even a little better than David Montgomery, so you feel like you're getting the same player. And here's the main thing: David Montgomery got $6 million a year. We paid this man $3 million, so you got the same player, the same numbers, the same abilities for half the price, which is excellent. And I think he's younger. If I'm not 100% sure on that. I loved him coming out of Texas. He was a guy that I had my eye on. He dealt with some injuries. I think he went to Houston and didn't really see the field much due to the injuries. Ended up in Carolina, played really well for them last year, had them vying for a playoff spot in that division, which hopefully they fall off this year because I really want that number one pick to be really, really good from Carolina. But he's a guy that I like a lot. He's got speed, burst. He can run in between the tackles or outside. I'm not sure on his catching ability. Maybe one of you guys know more about that. I hadn't researched it a ton, but I feel like you're getting the same player you lost in David Montgomery for half the price. And that's, like we talked about earlier, that's excellent team building by Ryan Poles. He's not overpaying. He's not going out and just paying McGlinchey a ton of money, even though he was a guy that I liked a lot and thought he fit the scheme. He's not overpaying for anybody. He's building for not only now, but in the future. Remember when he said, we're going to take the North and never give it back? This is what he meant. He meant we're going to play well, sign smart players, and not overpay them so that we can set ourselves up for success in the future as well as this year. It's not a 1 year thing with him. He's setting himself up to have longevity here. And I know we talked about Eberflus earlier. The more I'm seeing from him and the more I'm seeing the way the league is going, I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of Eberflus, especially if we lose Luke Getsy at any point. But that was Poles' guy. And I think Poles is setting himself to, even if Eberflus isn't the guy, he's setting himself up to where he can make the next choice. So I think I love what Poles is doing. I think Foreman is a underrated signing. We didn't jump on him as soon as the clock struck midnight, which was great. I think it helped us get a better deal for him. And I mean, that's a guy that I like a lot. I mean, we'll go around the room this way, KB, Chris, and then as I said, Jordan will finish this up. And
perfect. Because that means I get to say something about his press conference when he came out and said, I didn't just sign here because I thought I was gonna be a backup. When I say that man fired fucking shots, and ain't no slight at Khalil, but that man said flat out, the words out of his mouth, I did not sign here to be a backup. He wants to play. He said, I am coming to fight for a starting position. Hey, let the guns go bang, brother. Go ahead and fight for that starting spot. If you cannot beat Khalil Herbert, bro, do your fucking thing. Do your thing. I'm here for it. I love the competition. Whether it's friendly or not, I felt it was a friendly thing still, even though his face was dead serious when he said the shit. So I'm excited about that. Foreman was somebody that, to me, you know what I'm saying, coming from a gamer's perspective, you always pick him up in Madden. You know, the motherfucker always had the plus 90 speed. He can truck motherfuckers. And the thing you always had to worry about was, all right, yeah, you know what I'm saying, he was always hurt. Yeah, but dude's big, he's fast. As far as the catching, when you look at the stats, I don't think they really gave him the opportunity to be a receiving back. It was, you're a power back, you're going to get downfield. I think they showed the numbers, and I think he had like the same amount of attempts or like pass catching plays as like Khalil Herbert or some shit. And the numbers were like really fucking similar. So it's not to say that he's not, it's just they didn't have him do it. But I'm over the moon with the signing. To me, it's a very, very underrated signing. And if he can come in and start, bro, you have a big back. It's AJ Dillon with speed. So, yeah. But that's all I can say. But like I said, I like the signing, man. I do like Foreman. He seems to be he's motivated. I'll go with that. He's definitely motivated.
Yeah. Chris, I know you're a running back guy, man. Tell me about this dude. Have you seen anything on him? What are your thoughts?
I'll be honest with you. It's one of them sort of names that's always just been like on the edge. Do you know what I mean? But I think he's one of them players where when he gets actual chance to perform, he does it. Because obviously he was behind Christian McCaffrey, you know, for a long time last season until he got traded. And then since he got traded, he just played so well and filled in that position so well. But I think he was nearly 1,000-yard rusher. So I like it exactly what KB said about somebody coming up and going, look, I'm competing for the starting job. No, I'm not just here to look pretty and put a shirt on. You know what I mean? So I like his attitude already. You know, it's a bit of grit, and he seems like he can pick up pass blocking really well. So he's another good all-rounder. Like you said, AC, you know, we're going for, you know, quite a bit less than we would have been paying for Monty. Even though I'm really sort of pissed off that he's gone, and especially like he went to Detroit. I mean, that, like, I don't know which side sort of, you know, pushed it that way sort of thing. So, yeah, sad to see Monty go, but yeah, really happy with this signing, mate. Really happy.
Yeah, Don Burr's definitely having a field day with the Montgomery in here, talking about how hilarious our show is and whatnot. But you know, maybe you can watch a Lions show and y'all can talk about all your free agent ads. I don't know who it is other than Montgomery in a corner, which I guess you needed a corner, but we'll see how it works out, man. I try to come on here and not disrespect anybody, but man, Don, you're kind of pushing it. You come on here, you talk about KB's cousin, and then now you're talking about. I mean, why are you even watching the show if you're just gonna talk shit about everything that we have to say? We're trying to give Bears fans insight on our free agents that we signed and why we think they're good fits. It has nothing to do with the Lions. Go ahead.
Sorry to put in, mate, but like I said on other show, we'll find out where you live. We'll come round with boys and we'll sort you out. We'll sort you out, Don Bear.
Tell us,
It's all right having a bit of a jest, man, but like when you talk about people's family members, I mean, I ain't seen your messages, so I ain't going to comment on the context of it. Then you start into it. So just be wary when you're walking out Detroit that a mad Yorkshireman will grab hold of you from behind and drag you into the darkness, which is called Detroit. So, yeah, that's all I'm saying about that,
mate.
my boy C-Dub said, boy, don't make us fuck you up. Because we reserve right to fuck you up.
In a much more threatening way, we'll sort you out.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'll move on. Go ahead, Jordan, and tell us about Foreman. Is that the guy you thought I was going to talk about, or did you have?
No, I thought you were going to pick DeMarcus Walker because I'm pretty high on him, but it's okay. Look. I mean, that's the thing is, and of course, as Bears fans, we're going to tell you every signing was fantastic. I just. I liked a lot of the signings that they made. You guys know me. I'm not afraid to call Ryan Poles out and just express my issues with him. To me, I don't have a lot of negative things to say about this free agent class. I promise this is not to stroke Don's ego, but I just call it what it is. I like the Monty signing by Detroit. I think he fits.
It's a good signing.
I think he fits exactly what Dan Campbell wants. With respect to Deontay Foreman, I know the numbers are better and everything, and I'll give you all the context about that. But to me, David Montgomery is a better back than Deontay Foreman, and it's not particularly close. But when you're talking about money of $6 million a year for Montgomery versus $3 million, and look, the reality is it wasn't about the money, guys. They could have given $6 million a year to David Montgomery, no problem. It's about the value, which is at $3 million a year for 1 year for Deontay Foreman as a prove-it deal. How much of David Montgomery do I get? And considering what David Montgomery did in this offense last year, I would say it's over 85% of that guy is what you get in Deontay Foreman for a lot cheaper. Deontay Foreman, to the credit of him and his numbers last year that everybody references in relation to David Montgomery, took the lead back role after McCaffrey was shipped out and absolutely performed exceptionally well. I'm not here to discount anything that he did. I think the thing that people don't necessarily realize, though, is that offensive line was one of the healthiest in Carolina last year. All played every single game together, I believe. I don't think anybody had any dramatic injuries. And then they were able to retain all 5 this year as they're going forward. So he had a pretty solid run blocking offensive line ahead of him. The offense largely ran through him because they had a mixture of PJ Walker and Sam Darnold trying to quarterback there in Carolina. So he absolutely performed well. He's a career journeyman that's got an interesting track record. For anybody that wants to say he's a bummy running back, he's not. He was a top 100 pick, third rounder coming out of Texas, big back. Landed with the Texans. I believe he was cut due to personal issues. And again, that's, whatever happened then is different than now. I'm sure he's grown up a bit because he's been around the league and had to spend a cup of coffee with the Colts and the Falcons and training camp, and then ended up landing with the Titans. And to me, that is actually one of the bigger tells. Again, you're going to find me as one of the more biased guys about I like John Robinson, like Mike Vrabel, like what they do. You're not going to hear me complain about a lot of former Titans coming to the team. And that is, again, it's no coincidence why he ended up with the Titans. He had to try out for that role. Was given the opportunity to back up Derrick Henry, and then Derrick Henry went down with the foot injury. And again, they picked him up because he plays like Derrick Henry. He's a 6'1", bigger back, around 240. That it's not all the shiftiness, but he's got better long speed than David Montgomery does, which is why Derrick Henry's so successful. Is not only is he big, but if he gets moving, you're not catching him. So that is kind of what Deontay Foreman has. He doesn't have a lot of career receptions, so I'm not here to tell you his hands are awful, but I also don't think that anybody can tell you that they're a proven commodity, that he has the ability to be a threat out of the backfield catching the ball. But again, this is the entire situation with the Deontay Foreman signing, is that this offense needs a smash and a dash, a thunder and a lightning. And Khalil Herbert is absolutely more of that jitterbug lightning, option where you need this Deontay Foreman to pick you up 3-4 yards, fall forward, push the pile. So that to me is what I think about this signing. Again, not a lot negative to say for it. 1 year, $3 million. I guess I'll cap it with this is David Montgomery was a guy to me that we've talked about it already, that Chicago is before last year and they kind of pieced it together last year even. Before last year, they've had really dog shit offensive lines. And David Montgomery was a guy that found a way to produce in spite of an offensive line that was leaky. And that was what he was great at, contact balance and finding a way to create positive yardage. I don't think that Deontay Foreman's going to be that guy. But again, the hope is that the offensive line is more sure and better off than what David Montgomery went through. And that's one thing we absolutely know about Deontay Foreman, is that if there's a solid line ahead of him like he had in Tennessee and Carolina, he will absolutely pick you up David Montgomery yardage and even a few more splash plays.
Yeah. So does he have the because Montgomery's biggest knock was that he would get caught from behind on some of those breakaways. Does Foreman have the ability to break those, or is he a lot like Montgomery? He's probably going to get caught.
No, I think he'll certainly get farther than David Montgomery, but he's not a burner. It's not like he's going for 80, 78 out the gate. None of that. He'll get caught, but he does create really interesting conflict at that second and third level of the defense because he's a bigger back. So you have to make it's the Derrick Henry thing. He's a bigger back, so when he's running at your safety, you have to make a business decision about how am I going to choose to get this guy down. Yeah. And it's not going to be an easy tackle. And if I fail, I am the last line of defense, and he's got enough speed where he's taking it the whole other way if I don't make this tackle. Yeah. And then you'll see that in the Carolina film. You'll see that in the Titans film. He would, again, when it's blocked up well and he gets that second or third level, all of a sudden it gets harder to tackle him. And you better be real selective and careful about how you do it because if you miss, it's trouble.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I remember I made the joke that we're becoming a Carolina Titans. We signed a bunch of Panthers and Titans. I mean, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. You see the Panthers had that spark near the end of the season, which is weird because you trade away your key guy and then everybody rallied up. So I mean that's just the hallmark of a good coach. So I'm like I said, I don't think he's a speed burner, and he, like, you know what I'm saying, like Jordan was saying, but he does have the speed to, if he gets past you, it's probably going to be a time trying to get the motherfucker, which is
this is
what we need.
Spot on, because the thing is Montgomery has a higher gear too. It's not that he can't break off long runs, but this is the problem: is that David Montgomery will get 67 yards against the Rams, and somehow it's gone 67 yards. And he got caught. That's the difference. I don't think that Deontay Foreman ever gets 67 yards and somebody's catching him at yard 68. That's the thing, is it's going to end probably a lot sooner than that. And Barely Similar here is talking about 4.45 at 228. Like, that's the thing, is that it's got longer speed than David Montgomery. And so David Montgomery is contact balance, would find a way to break a consistent 6 to 10 yards. But when he would get the opportunity, and this was always the one Achilles heel of David Montgomery, when he would get the opportunity to go for 70, 80 yards, it never resulted in those as much as it should have. And I know everybody's going to point to the long Texans run against one of the worst defenses in the league that year. But the reality is he would oftentimes have a hole teed up to go, tons of yards, and it just wouldn't get there. And you're hoping that whatever you bring in, whether it's Foreman, Homer, Herbert, day 2 or day 3 back in April, you want home run hitters at the running back position. And that is really the honest to God, the only issue with David Montgomery is he's a very complete back and everything else than what is, to me, is if I'm building a team, the prerequisite goal with my running back is, yes, I need him to pass block. Yes, I want him to catch. Yes, I want him to be patient, to set up his blocks, all of those things. But I absolutely want to know as a bare minimum that anytime I give him the ball, it can be magic and he can take it the whole way if everything lined up the right way. And David Montgomery didn't truly present that to you enough.
No, I was gonna say it's like my boy Swifty was saying. You got Foreman and Herbert. Both of them have better bursts than what Monty does, and that's why I go with. They have better bursts. But yeah, I would say that's all I'm gonna speak on it.
Well, I like the signing, and like I said, the biggest thing for me was the money because he's not just throwing a bunch of money at anybody. He's setting himself for longevity. Everything I touched on earlier. If you want to talk about Walker, you can go ahead, Jordan, and give us some information on him.
Because I don't know enough about him.
Yeah, I know he came out of Tennessee. I believe in this defense. I've heard rumors that he's probably the 3 tech, but I think he played edge at Tennessee. So, Jordan, can you give me some information on this guy, please?
Yeah, well, I would be remiss to say, again, we're talking about a former Titan, so you're not going to hear me complain too much about it. Call it a theme, call it whatever you want. And again, I'm talking very much from a personal feeling here, but I like what those teams did. I like Mike Vrabel. And John Robinson's no longer there. He's the GM that was fired because of the A.J. Brown move, and that's its own issue. But the way that they built that team, and in some ways, I mean, and AC, you're kind of close to it with Tennessee around there, and you'll kind of understand this, that in many ways the Titans are they're this own little island of misfits where they weren't really like a lot of other teams in the league. They had unique players, the way that they would use them. And I'm not saying that that's what I totally want the Chicago Bears to be, but I do think that you're starting to see a trend of him taking players from that regime, that style. And it's curious. It's interesting to me. And I see George here saying Tennessee played 5 tech end, so it's similar to 3. Yeah, I mean, so I'll get into that. Again, that odd front in Tennessee, they had him playing as a 5 tech, which this is the interesting thing is, again, he's not a burner. He's not going to be, Robert Quinn getting off the edge and, bending the corner and, curving around the arc, nothing like that. If you wanted to play him at D end, I would probably tell you that he should drop a little bit of weight. But as a former 5 tech in the odd fronts, I think he's going to be more of a thrasher on your tackles, which means he's just going to run through their chest and beat the shit out of them on the way to the quarterback. The way that, here's a good example is Lucas Van Ness at Iowa is the same type of player, where I've often said, if Lucas Van Ness is not a Bear, send him to Tennessee so that he can be what Bud Dupree should have been. They can have their bendy Harold Landry off the other end. And then you have Lucas Van Ness here, who's just terrorizing tackles by jackknifing the pads into their neck and then driving them back. So I think DeMarcus Walker has the ability to play that if you want him, but you're going to need him to drop a tiny bit of weight and play that. But again, where are we maximizing players? So to George's point, and what you've talked about, AC and KB and everybody else, he is likely a better 3 tech. He's about 280. He can either play there and he's more explosive than most guards in that way, or you can tell him to add a little bit of weight so that he's a little more stout against the run. But the whole idea there with these 5 techs is that, and as George was astutely saying, if you can transition them to 3, they already have an advantage because they typically are more athletic than an even front defensive tackle. And no shot to a Billings or anybody else, but that's that. Billings is an example of an even front 4-3 defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. They're weightier, they're bigger. They can be explosive, but they're not going to nearly be as agile or nimble as what a 5 tech like a DeMarcus Walker moving inside will do. Mm-hmm. And so the general idea there is, can I have this DeMarcus Walker who's more agile and nimble than most guards? Can he match them with power for the most part, but then flash this explosive athletic ability and beat them if I can get Walker one-on-one with a guard? And I think that is the goal here. And I'm not telling you he's going to be a superstar 3 tech, not telling you he's the starter. But the thing to be inspired about with him is similar to the Foreman thing. And again, I another weird trend is I think that you've seen Ryan Poles take these guys that have failed previously in their career and they found a way to show. Again, he's not necessarily giving them the chance. He's seen them show success before they get to Chicago. But these guys that kind of fell off the wagon, maybe weren't, shining stars from the beginning, and then they found a way. And that was the DeMarcus Walker thing too, is he landed in Denver behind a stacked defense. It was during that time of, again, not quite the Super Bowl, but it was the years after in that Fangio scheme where they had all of their pieces set with Chubb and Pecco and Miller and all these, Shaquille Barrett and all these other guys that they had. So Shane Ray, So in this scenario, I think that you're looking at Walker, and you've seen, sure, he had a rough start, but in Tennessee last year, they didn't have Harold Landry. He was playing, yes, he had some stars around him. He was playing with Big Jeff Simmons, and he was playing with Danico Autry. But Dupree was kind of absentee. Harold Landry was out all year, and found a way to produce pressure and sacks and have a career best year when otherwise I really thought that Tennessee defense was running off of Todd Downing's great scheme and schematics in mind more than it was, he's playing around superstars and that's why he's getting all these stats. So I really think that the best years of DeMarcus Walker are ahead if he's deployed the right way. And I think I'm excited. I mean, when I heard the signing, I was on with Danny Shimon and Aldo at the time, and people were like, "Who's this guy?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm excited. I know where he's from. I know what he's about." It made sense to me, and so I like the opportunity for him in Chicago.
That's good, man.
When I had seen it, and my bad, see, I just want to say this. I know because when I seen it, and I started to do a little bit of digging, like I said, I didn't know shit about Walker. The first thing that popped in the head was, I hope this isn't another. What's my man's name that signed from Indianapolis? Shit, I can't remember his name for shit right now. But he played DN. And it was like, oh, well, he had like 5 or 6 sacks the year before, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I hope this isn't another Muhammad signing. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of look at some of the, you know what I'm saying? You get highlight film, of course, highlight film. I'm going to show you the best of how this kid plays. And the first thing that came to mind was, I was like, bro, we really sure that they signed this motherfucker to be a defensive end? Right. Because that swim move, oh, that shit was vicious. If you put that kid in at 3-tech and you see the size of him, I was like, he might actually be here playing 3-tech, because right now we don't necessarily have one, and that's what you said that you were looking for. So that was where my mind had went after I started to look him up. You know what I'm saying? You seen the things he's doing. Like, yeah, I can definitely see him kicking inside, bro.
Yeah, you're gonna have some. I mean, this is the thing too. Is I hope and pray that they have more competition than just Billings and Walker. But again, we're talking just with what the team has now. Mm-hmm. To me, Walker and Billings is your 1-tech, Walker is your 3, is better than Justin Jones as a 3 and Mike Pennell as your 1-tech. Right. So again, you're starting, and AC you talked about is like, we're going to take the North and never give it back. And I think what you're starting to see is this is a slow siege that's taking place. Like, we're going to build it slowly, build it correctly, brick by brick. And when we're there, we're going to be this force that's got years of sustainability that's going to be hard to knock off the top of the mountain. As opposed to other divisions where you're the Jaguars and you can throw the most money in free agency ever to fix your team, and it takes you to the playoffs one year. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll be just as good. But a lot of the time when you're spending that quick cash in free agency, it's wonderful in the quick fix. We saw it with the 2018 Bears. And then it tends to kind of fizzle out. And so, again, there's no necessarily wrong way of doing it, but I tend to think that this slower, more methodical build will reward patience and gift sustainability more than what you're seeing with other teams that just splash in free agency with money.
Yeah, man. It's and I think I'm trying to remember who said it. Sophisticated Thoughts, I believe, in the chat talked about his press conference, and they asked him, did Justin Fields have anything to do with you signing here? And he said, well, pardon my French, but abso-fucking-lutely. And we talked about when we interviewed Andrew, when we talked about Justin Fields, is this a guy that other teams in the league are talking about this guy as, look out for this man. This is a guy they want to play with. We brought it up straight up to Andrew, and now you're seeing it with Walker. Justin Fields has been a chess piece that we've been able to use to lure free agents into here. And I love the idea of we needed a 3-tech. We need pass rush. We went out and hit the free agent market. The draft is pretty deep at this position. There's still edge rushers out there. Jordan, I know you talked about Bud Dupree not being great last year, but he's still sitting out there. As far as I know, Zadarius Smith didn't sign with anybody. I hadn't seen anything. He's a guy who asked for his release. So if we do go edge rusher or anything like that, those are some guys to keep an eye on, just in my mind. And that's strictly because they were Kentucky Wildcats is why I know a lot about them. I'm not going to beat around the bush and say, well, this guy's this and this guy's that. I don't even know if they're complete fits. Those are just guys that I know. we kind of went around the room and talked about our favorite free agent signings. I'm going to pull up on my phone here the top remaining free agents. And if you guys wanted to talk about someone that you got your eye on that maybe we could bring in and continue building this team. Jordan, I feel like you probably got someone at the top of your mind. If you want to start us off, that'll give me time to filibuster some to pull up a list. If you're cool with that, are you?
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's funny. I see. I'm going to go a different route here, George. But George has a good option here. He's talking about Chuma Edoga. I'm fitting at left guard. Chuma was, I believe, with the Jets and then Falcons last year. George, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but not a bad option to me. I mentioned him earlier, but George Fant is the guy that makes a lot of sense to me. I know he's not. I don't even think he's over 30. He may be 30.
He's like 28 or 29. I know what you're talking about.
A guy that can play, and I know we always talk about like, well, I want the premier right tackle, Mike McGlinchey, because he plays right. And I'm like, I think that versatility matters more than people realize, which is a lot of talk about like Cody Whitehair being cut. And I'm like, why would you cut a guy that can play both guards and the center and he's adequate? And I mean, that's the thing is George Fant's a player who can play left tackle and right tackle, has shown the ability and adequacy to play both at an appropriate level. And he's young enough where, again, it's not like I was campaigning for Dwayne Brown last year because he's had a great career. And Dwayne Brown is fairly established in the back line of his career. George Fant's not even there yet. And showed out well with the Seahawks before he went to the Jets and played when Mekhi Becton was out and played very well. And then the Jets were ravaged on the offensive line last year. So he was injured, which is maybe why he's having a slower market. But I think to me, George Fant's the guy you talk about. We have that right tackle hole. If Braxton were to get hurt, if the right tackle doesn't play well, if you're bringing in a rookie, anything like that, George Fant makes a ton of sense to me.
Well, I just Googled George Fant to look up some of his stats. PFF won't show them to me unless I pay for it. So
not happening.
I just Googled him again, and he is 30 years old, born July 19th, 1992. Out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. So I mean,
here we go.
We signed him.
Here we go.
I'm just telling you, people can look up. I mean, do it on YouTube, do it on Twitter. Type into your search bar on Twitter, George Fant. I mean, every tackle has ugly plays, but he's solid. Again, you're not at this point in free agency. You're not getting a premier guy, and I would argue. I won't go too deep on this, but I would argue this is the point that a lot of people skip over is. Ryan Poles and the Bears have decided to not overpay for premium positions in free agency, or premium positions in free agency very seldom give you the top of the market. I understand that there's an occasional Jeremy Bates that's there. Maybe there's, Teron Armstead. But even then, I would push back with a guy like Teron Armstead. When you're talking about free agency, you never get the premier top 3 tackles in the league, the top 3 defensive. Khalil Mack doesn't hit free agency. Von Miller hit free agency after he, turned out his deal with the Rams. But for the most part, this is what you're seeing with the Bears is they're being selective. And I'll spend a lot of money on maybe an off-ball linebacker. And that seems very rich, but I'd rather pay $17 million for Tremaine Edmonds, who's much closer to the top of the league, than $17 million for Mike McGlinchey. That I promise I'm not trying to slay the guy here, but Mike McGlinchey to me is top 18-ish tackle in the league. Like he's fine. Not a liability, but he's okay. So George Fant.
When I did search him, though, a lot of the stories are the Dolphins showing interest in him. So I don't know what kind of salary cap they've got there, or even if Ryan.
You want to talk about my offseason? One of my offseason winners, like the Dolphins, are give Chris Greer a medal for what he's doing right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what their salary cap looks like, or if Poles would want to get into a bidding war. But George Fant to the Dolphins is what I'm seeing when I Google his name. So that's an interesting name, Jordan. And let me bring back this list up. Now, the top ones you're going to see Jadeveon Clowney. I see Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. There's a lot of people in the chat calling for him. I just feel like with Gardner-Johnson, I love him. I like what he does on the field, but I think he's looking for either a contender or big money. And we've already got a lot tied up into Eddie Jackson, which does a lot of the same things that Chauncey Gardner-Johnson does in my eyes. Now, I don't have the student eyes that Jordan Silvera has, to where he was watching the tape and stuff, but I do know that he's a guy that I like, but I just don't think Pulse is going to throw a bunch of money at somebody just to get them in here.
Now, break a little bit of news before we continue. Brandon Cooks traded to the Cowboys for a 2024 fifth rounder and sixth rounder. We don't have to totally go into it. I know it's not a Cowboys show, but I love the move. You're talking about Dallas team.
Good move.
Dallas team that's desperately missing another receiver. And Brandon Cooks is a consummate professional. So, yeah, I mean, I won't go too much even that, but I love the move.
Yeah, I like Brandon Cooks quite a bit as well. He's a guy that I was looking for us when I saw that he was looking to get out of Houston. He was asking for a trade, but I think, again, he wanted to go to kind of a contender, and the Cowboys have kind of got quite a few pieces out there. And that's nice for them to try and take some pressure off of CeeDee Lamb, he's a damn good receiver, but he can't do it all by himself. They were in talks with OBJ, but OBJ is asking for $20 million. This is a smart move by the Cowboys. I'm not just going to beat around the bush on it, to be completely honest. That's a good move. And I'm not on Twitter right now, so thanks for breaking that news for us, Jordan.
You get the notifications that come through. Blogging the boys. Cowboys trade for Brandon Cooks.
That's what's up, man. That's good for them. It's a good move. Brandon Cooks need to be out of Houston. Hey, man, he's too underrated to not contend for something. So that's a good move for them, man. I was gonna say if we still moving forward, and my boy Chris, you got anybody you want to talk about, man?
Well, more position wise rather than an individual. Really, I mean, I think really we should be looking at maybe bringing somebody in for like the nickelback position, somebody who can cover the slot receiver. Hopefully Jackson's going to be back fine for next season after his injury. Keep Brisket in the box. But I don't know names. That's the unfortunate thing. I have like a fish memory when it comes to names. Luckily, KB, you're known as KB, and Survey C. Jordan, you're lucky because it's a biblical name, and that's why I remember your name. I'm absolutely terrible with names. But, I just think like Nickelback really. And I know we mentioned that McCliskey quite a lot, the previous 49ers line. I think the only reason I actually liked him because he actually wears like the old school sort of face mask with a bar going down the middle. And I ain't seen them since like 98 to 9. So every time I used to see the highlights of the 49ers, I used to always have a look out for him with the old school face mask on. But yeah, I think we could definitely help with the corner. I know like Jack's supposed to be deep with the cornerbacks this year, but cornerback maybe and nickelback really still coming maybe in the free agency.
We don't have to go so deep on it, but there are some real names still available at nickelback that to me I'd be excited for. George talked about one of them in the chat, which is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That would be the premier option to me, but I'm not going to allow myself to fall for that dream because I would be about as happy if Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was signed as I was when Andrew Billings was signed. That's about that same feeling because to me, I like, and I don't mean to keep harping on this, but like, I like what the Titans do. I like physical teams. I like teams that challenge you and say, hey, like, we're going to play a game of big bank, take little bank, and we're going to punch you. Ooh. And you're either going to walk away or you're going to punch back. And to me, that's what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is. And I mean, Bears fans should be familiar. He was able to get the best out of Anthony Miller and Javon Wims, but Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he was with the Eagles last year, and I thought Howie Roseman stole him away for like a 6th round pick. But CJ Gardner-Johnson is a guy that you can play him at safety or slot. And if you put him at nickel, I mean, watch what he did with the Saints. He would literally terrorize and abuse and beat the hell up of a slot receiver before he would even get 2 or 3 yards off the ball to where it would effectively displace the route. And so that is – and this is what I'm saying. I won't allow myself to fall in love with it because I don't think it's going to happen. I think he'll go to a contender, and I don't even know if Flus wants that type of player. But if you're looking for a guy that just beats the hell out of slot receivers – physically just beats them up before they even get to their routes, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is an option. And then Sean Murphy-Bunting, the nickel corner out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, former 2nd round pick, is a solid player if he's healthy. And then if you're looking for an older guy, and I don't think this is the way they'd go, but he was premier nickel for many years in the league, is Justin Coleman, who's out there. And he was with the Dolphins. He went from the Seahawks to the Patriots to the Dolphins, and now he was back with the Seahawks last year, but he's a free agent.
Yeah, I was trying to look up corners. One that I hadn't realized he had signed was Byron Murphy, who played for the
with the Vikings.
Oh, yeah, the
Cardinals.
Vikings.
He signed with the Vikings, so that's a guy that we're going to have to deal with. He played really well against us, and that was really the first time that I saw him. He kind of jumped in my eyes, and I was like, wow, I really like this guy. There are some names in here. Marcus Peters, who played for Baltimore, he was pretty good, but I think he's outside. And Rocky Sin is a guy that a lot of people are throwing in the chat. And I believe he spent time in Indy, so Eberflus is probably familiar with his game. So if that's a name that
decent
Eberflus
outside corner.
yeah. Well, I mean, they haven't really said whether Kyler Gordon is inside or outside. If you can get a solid outside, maybe Kyler can stay in the nickel and they won't move him around. I think it'd be good for his career to not move back and forth. You know what I'm saying? So just raising all the talent on the defense in the secondary, I feel like is a smart move, and definitely putting someone in a position where they're not moving a whole lot and they only have to learn that one position instead of learning multiple positions, especially in a rookie year where you're starting to get your feet wet. And then I don't know. I think they did Kyler Gordon kind of wrong last year in that aspect. But I feel like I know who KB is going to bring up. But go ahead, KB. You bring up a free agent that you like, and
you already know who I'm bringing up, man. I've been pounding the table for him since free agency started, and that's Yannick Ngakoue. I know he's not necessarily the best against the run, but at the end of the day, we need somebody to come in and rush the fucking passer. And that is something he does exceptionally well. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to put up 20 sacks. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say he's going to put up 15 sacks, but he's consistent between 8 and 10. Right now, we don't have anybody on the defensive line that we can say can probably get us 5. So, Yannick is the guy I'm looking at. I would love to see the signing happen. You know, he would help bring a little bit of stability to the line, and you would have him, DeMarcus Walker, my cousin. And that's the makings of a solid line. I know Jordan. I know you were on the train of Arden Key being brought to the team at one point. And it sucks that he got signed. I can't remember who he signed with though.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll be very quick. The Yannick Ngakoue thing would be great if it happens. I don't know if it happens because he's always been with Gus Bradley throughout his career.
No, I never paid attention to that.
It was with the Jaguars. The only time he wasn't was with him. He was with the Vikings and the Ravens. But those were situations where he was traded to those places. So he didn't get his choice. Whenever he's had a choice, he's always followed Gus Bradley. He was there. So the places he's been with Gus Bradley was the Jacksonville Jaguars when he was drafted. And I wish I had him on source, but there are a few Jacksonville playbooks leaking around that have leaked around before where Gus Bradley has specific plays and games on the line for his weak defensive end, which is Ngakoue. So values him specifically. And it just makes sense where drafted him in Jacksonville. Then he got traded around a bit in that weird toss-up between the Vikings and the Ravens. And then he ended up, when he got a chance to choose again, followed him to Las Vegas with the Raiders. And then when he went to the Colts as a DC, Yannick went there. And Gus Bradley is still a DC with the Colts. So it just – I again, call it crazy, but I think there's a reason he hasn't signed yet is they're just trying to find the right number. And we'll see. The Colts did sign Samson Ebukam. So maybe
that's where he went.
Maybe that's their answer, and they are really going to let go of Yannick. But I think to me – when you talk about it, just makes sense. Gus Bradley's still there. They like their defensive lineman. Chris Ballard obviously didn't have a problem signing Ngakoue last year. Ngakoue produced. I think they're just trying to find the right number, and you're going to see that marriage happen again.
Yeah, well, you brought up Arden Key. He is, according to Google, he is with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I guess that's where he signed. Ngakoue, I thought was a guy I definitely thought you were going to bring up. Like his production. Jordan, I was unfamiliar that he was following a certain DC around. He must like to play for that guy. He likes the defense he runs, and and things like that. So that'll definitely be something to look out for on that front, to see where he ends up signing. Most of the edges I'm seeing in here, honestly, I feel like I'd rather take my chances in the draft. You got Jadeveon Clowney, who, I mean, he's fine. He's getting up there in age. He's not doing anything that wows me. And he's probably, I mean, the guy's, he's cashed in quite a bit. So he's still making money. And I just don't think that he's the guy that they'd want to bring in. Leonard Floyd on here, I think we already saw that here. I don't know if he's even big enough to play D end, maybe an outside linebacker type. Melvin Ingram's old, Justin Houston's old, and what this team is doing, because if you look at who we signed, they're all 26 years old. They're all either coming off their first contract or looking for something to prove. So a lot of these names I feel like are irrelevant. We did sign Bob Tunyon, who I wasn't a fan of at first. I can't remember if it was in our group chat that I talked about this or if it was in a different one, but I just feel like he does everything Kmet does. I guess he knows the scheme, so it's good depth, but I didn't realize he grew up a Bears fan. They posted him on Instagram, a picture of him as a kid in an Urlacher jersey. So we've signed a couple of Bears fans this offseason. I don't know if that's something you guys would want to talk about, or I mean, you got Bob Tunyon and TJ Edwards, both grew up Bears fans. They got Brian Urlacher's autograph back in the day. They had Hester jerseys. I kind of feel like one of us got signed. It's it's exciting.
I just want to throw these two names out real quick. I know one of the guys. I think Jordan might know. The first one, it sucks as he re-signed with the Raiders. I didn't realize it was Jermaine Illuminor. I would have loved for us to go after him too. He's a solid right tackle for them last year, and they did the right thing. They re-signed him. The other name I'm gonna throw out is nickel, of course, was Kenny Moore. I don't know what the situation is on Kenny Moore right now. I heard in some circles that he was being cut. I heard in some circles that the Colts might keep him or they might trade him. So I don't know if the man plays for the Colts right now or if he doesn't have a job. If he didn't have a job, that would be somebody I would definitely be looking for. He's still young as shit. Very extensive history with Eberflus. Would come in and be a really good nickel corner, which is something that we necessarily need. But those are the two names. But the one I really, really liked was Jermaine Illuminor. I thought he would have been a real sneaky signing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Kenny Moore is a guy that they were bringing up in the chat a little while back. I don't see him on this free agent list that I'm looking at currently. Maybe he's a guy that you can trade for. And who knows, like I said, we have 6 picks on the third day. So that's possibly you throw one of those to the Colts and they throw you a nickel corner. They said his best years were under Eberflus. So if he wants to get back into his style of defense and his scheme, that'd be that's definitely something to look for to see if they do that. Or do you guys think we're done on the D line, or is
I'm done.
I know Ashawn Robinson's on here still. I don't know how updated this list is or anything. He's a guy that I like.
Ashawn's a great run stuffer, and I don't think people remember how much of a presence he was with the Rams, and maybe they will. You can always add to the defensive line room, but to me, there was a hole at one tech, and it was going to be filled by an Ashawn Robinson or an Andrew Billings, and Andrew Billings got the pick. Now that doesn't mean they can't bring in Ashawn Robinson, but I'll be very quick about this too. Is Ashawn's problem has been health, at least as of late. Where that was again, I'm guessing, I'm not Ryan Poles, but I would guess that was probably a reason why Billings was selected over Ashawn is health has not been an issue, and there's more recent productivity from Andrew Billings as opposed to Ashawn Robinson. Somebody mentioned in the chat, and I put it on Twitter a couple days ago, but Kentavious Street, who was drafted with the 49ers and then played with the Saints last year, is a guy that I'd like. If you're something I talk about is Duke Tobin with the Bengals is like taking multiple medium level swings. So you can swing big for, the perfect example of the Bengals was they signed Trey Waynes, the Minnesota Vikings corner, to a mega deal. and he never really played, and it was an awful waste of money. And then Duke Tobin kind of learned from that and came back and said, well, you know what I'll do is I'll sign a B-level outside corner in Chidobe Awuzie from the Cowboys, and then I'll sign a B-level. Again, I actually think he's better than B-level, but a B-level guy in Mike Hilton, the nickel corner from the Steelers. And that was how they kind of patched that cornerback room after making a mistake. And to me, what that represents is you already have DeMarcus Walker, who's this kind of D-end, 3-tech mold. Kentavious Street is kind of the same guy, same mold at least, where he can play outside, but is better kind of as a 3-tech. And if you wanted to say, hey, we'll have a competition, you guys will be both medium and modestly priced, and one of you guys will win, or you can both stay on the team and you'll have depth. To me, Kentavious Street makes a lot of sense at D-line.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the D-line subject, Tony the Pod Boss just threw an interesting subject out. Could you guys see him trading for a Chase Young or another young defensive end? It could. I love Chase Young. I know injuries have been an issue for him. Seeing him on the sideline in Washington a lot has really hurt their defense, but he's a guy that I loved coming out of Ohio State. Obviously, he went, I think, number 1 in the draft. So he's definitely a guy that I would be interested in. I can't think of any other young defensive ends that are possibly on the trade block. But that's a dude that I really like.
I got to jump in on this because this has been something I've been thinking about a lot, like a ton. And I'm like holding out hope and fingers crossed and like, please, please, please. The one that makes so much sense to me is come at draft weekend. If you can find a way to convince the Washington football team to move up to number 9, my number one thing is because maybe they'll give you picks, and I know everybody would want picks, but to me, the one that makes sense is this is why I love the DJ Moore thing is like, I don't care what the 25 first looks like because I'm not there yet, and I don't know where they're going to be. And I mean, God, by 25, Justin Fields is going to be at the end of his contract. I want the immediate production now. And so to me, what that looks like is Montez Sweat is on the last year of his deal, 5th-year option, was super productive last year. You know what you're getting. They have already invested in Deron Payne and John Allen. They're going to have to make a decision on Chase Young. Fedarian Mathis was a 2nd-round pick last year. I get that they're not really going anywhere. They don't know what their quarterback is. But that's kind of the thing with where Washington's money is tied up is it's John Allen, it's Deron Payne, and it's Terry McLaurin. That's really it, truly. They don't have a ton of money elsewhere. And sure, I guess they could just say, we're just going to pay the entire defensive line. But you're going to have to build the rest of the roster. So to me, I'd look and go, hey, you want to come up to 9? We'll take Montez Sweat and a 3rd or something like that. If you're okay going, look, I'm at number 9, and whether it's Paris Johnson or it's Peter Skoronski or, it's Broderick Jones, there's no way that I'm going to see 3 tackles go in 6 picks. Like it's, if you're in the situation like that, I'm going for Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
So it's funny because you kind of took the idea I had.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. And this is funny because I know this one is gonna make this guy up here with this Bears hat on pretty happy. God damn it, Chris has Bears hat on. Like it. But a guy I had, it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. But the one thing I'm starting to realize is Jacksonville has a lot of money tied up at the moment. And I don't necessarily know if they picked up this dude's 5th option or not yet. But you see him crossing his arms. If there was ever a way for us to steal or cut the legs off from underneath Jacksonville Jaguars' feet or legs or body, whatever the fuck you want to call it, for Josh Allen, I would also be a very happy man. Because like I said, they got a lot of money tied up in a lot of places because they spent a ridiculous amount. They spent a ridiculous. They said we got how much? We're gonna spend all of it except $1 million.
Yeah. And
put themselves in a negative position. So if Josh Allen came to them was like, I'm good on y'all. I'm gonna go ahead and go somewhere else. And it was a way that the Bears was like, hey, come on. Josh Allen would be the guy I'll be looking at. Like I said, the Washington one is honestly one that makes a lot of fucking sense. Boy, don't let a quarterback slide to 9. Please, guys, don't let a quarterback slide to 9. Because if a quarterback slides to 9, then I might actually jump on the plane and fly to George's house, and me and him be sitting on the couch looking at the screen like this. It's gonna happen, right? They're gonna trade. Yeah, I think they're gonna trade for him. But to me, the most plausible situation is the one he's talking about. My more outlandish one would be somehow for us to steal Josh Allen. And I would love to see Mr. AC's face if that ever happened.
Hey, I love Josh Allen, man. He when he played at Kentucky, he did things that I never thought possible in a Kentucky uniform. And I don't know if you guys know his backstory. He was a 2-star.
He's a
prospect coming out. His only other offer was from Rutgers, and that was because he's from New Jersey. One of his family members knew someone at Rutgers, and they were like, "You better get on this guy." So that was his only other option, was either Kentucky or Rutgers. He came to Kentucky. He sat behind other guys and learned, like Bud Dupree, Zadarius Smith, those type of guys. He waited his turn, and then when he got his chance, he blew it up. And I still don't know why the Raiders passed on him to grab Cleveland Farrell, but they're still regretting it to this day, because they would have had that defensive end spot locked up. If there's any possibility of, you talk about a guy getting it out the mud, you don't see 2-star prospects going in the top 10, in my experience. That guy has literally worked his ass off to get to where he's at, and he's a hell of a player. I love that guy.
Oh yeah.
No question about it. I don't know if I feel like they like him in Jacksonville, man.
They definitely like him
a lot. So
they definitely like him.
I mean, the money might not add up, but the love for him does.
That is the only situation that I can sit there and see, is maybe Josh Allen comes out and he's just like, I want to be paid more. If they have to sit there and say, we got to use a franchise tag on, dog, you're about to pay out the ass, because in the defensive end fucking franchise tag close to being like something similar to a quarterback's, it's like in the 20 millions, dog. You would
be up there, yeah.
You would be paying out the ass for 1 year for him. And if your cap situation is already struggling, you might have to let the man test the waters. And if they put some type of like tender on him, you got extra picks. Mm-hmm. You could possibly bring in a beast at the edge fucking position, man. Like I said, to me, that's a pipe dream. It's definitely a pipe dream, but it'd be something. Oh my god, I would love to see it just for you. Just for you alone.
This up. And, I remember watching that game, and at the end of it, I think I tweeted out something like, "The real Josh Allen showed up today" or something, because they played against the Bills, and he had a hell of a game against the Bills. Yeah, that's a dude that I got a lot of love for him. I can't think of anyone else that we could possibly trade for off the top of my head. I know Mecole Hardman tweeted out something about wanting to play with Justin again. Is that a guy you guys think possibly we could bring in? I wasn't huge on him, but I feel like he could do what Velus Jones does and maybe gives you depth at that position. We saw Velus drop a lot of punts. I'm not sure, but I think he returned punts and kicks at Georgia, so he has that in his bag, as they say. Is that a guy that you guys would be at all interested in giving a look? I mean, if he's still sitting out there, maybe you can get him for not a whole lot of money. Maybe it kind of lines right up with what Ryan Poles is looking for.
I mean, I'll be very brief and say I like him with Justin Herbert. I'm not trying to be coy there, but that's actually what I think is the Chargers need speed. And to me, I've constantly been like, I mean, you can go get a Jalen Hyatt or something like that, but Mecole Hardman makes a lot of sense with the Chargers. I know we're asking about Bears, and of course, it's never bad to just continue to fill the room with artillery and options at wide receiver. And I know that there's some chemistry, but it's been years, and I'm not. Again, Mecole. For those that don't remember, Mecole was drafted because Tyreek Hill was going through some legal issues at the time. And they were like, who is the next fastest guy that we can get to operate in that same role? And obviously Tyreek came back and was fantastic, and so he never got a role. So I'm not even here to tell you like Mecole's a bad player, but I just don't know what is he bringing or adding that doesn't directly detract from what else you have going on. And like you said, AC, sure, he could replace Velus. And I'm not telling anybody that Velus is like a sacred or holy cow that you can't replace. But
Right.
If I'm Ryan Poles, I'm like, I'm not trying to cut my own nose off to spite my face, because if I sign Mecole and he's better than Velus, I'm actively flushing down my 3rd round pick from last year. And I don't know if I'd do that if I was him, but that's me.
True. Yeah, it's not like he's a pace pick who you're trying to replace. That was a guy that he went out and got. So that's definitely something to look at in that position. But at least they're talking about 3 techs in the draft.
I see Bear saying he likes Brian Bresee. I mean, Brian's fine. Health is a big concern there. If health is correct, then sure, give it a go. I'm excited for draft talk. I'm excited for draft season because to me, I know he's a big Darnell Wright fan, and we'll see what happens. There was a time that Darnell Wright was thought to be a 2nd round pick. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. You're going to find some team that goes, I'll take, again, because it's the Mike McGlinchey thing. Like Mike McGlinchey was a right tackle, went at number 9, and DeJuan Jones is another right tackle, likely exclusive. So it's going to be somewhere between him and Darnell Wright. But I think you're always going to find a team that says, I'll take a right tackle in the 1st round. So to me, offensive line is deep, but tackle's not nearly as deep in the draft as defensive tackle and defensive end. Offensive tackle is not as deep, that is. So to me, Brian Berse's okay. I mean, I see Nomad saying he's just regular to me. Like, he's fine. My problem with the Clemson guys is that you're playing with Tyler Davis and Miles Murphy and Brian Bresee. And again, if I'm talking about Miles Murphy, you're playing with Bresee and Tyler Davis. If I'm talking about Bresee, you're playing with Tyler Davis and Miles Murphy. And Bresee has some splash plays, but it wasn't as dominant and regular as I'd like to see. And that to me is like, I know Barelissimo George has that problem with Jalen Carter. Is like, hey, when he turns it on, it's fantastic, but it doesn't happen enough. So that's my issue there. And so to me, I think you find 3 tackles and DNs much later in the draft, whether that's, Adetame Adebawore, Zach Pickens, Byron Young, if you're talking about the one text like DJ Dale, like you can go in different directions to fill that more than a Peter Skoronski, a Broderick Jones, a Paris Johnson, one of those guys in the 1st round that absolutely will not be there in the 2nd round. And if you're talking about 2nd round tackles, I guess maybe you're going for like a Wanye Morris or Carter Warren. It's like there's not a lot.
You never know. I mean, the guy that the Cowboys drafted, I think, is Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. He was the guy that we were looking at for our 2nd round pick last year, but he went in the 1st round. So literally guys that look like they're going to be 2nd round picks right now, like a Darnell Wright or anyone like that. Yeah, find their way up into that draft. It's just all about how these talent evaluators evaluate the talent and what they look like in interviews, and when they send private investigators to check on these guys' background to see, ask them if he still gets along with his kindergarten teacher and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's it'll be fun to see how it all plays out. I feel like I'm more on board now with taking an offensive lineman in that 1st round, especially if you can't find a trade partner. I like Paris Johnson Jr. He's played on the right side before. He's got a history with Justin, played left tackle, so he can play either tackle spot, I feel like. Darnell Wright's a guy that a lot of people are talking about. Maybe if you trade back, maybe that's a guy you look at. I think Greg Gabriel was talking about his athletic ability not being up to par with this scheme, which is a huge thing. It's the reason why we were out on Orlando Brown. So I'm not really sure, but those are just a couple of I do worry about Skoronski's arm length, but the other guy from Northwestern's playing for the Chargers and doing pretty damn well, and he had the same questions coming out in the draft. Was his
Slater had longer arms is the problem. There's truly never been, at least to my mind right off the top, there's never been a tackle with arms as short as Skoronski that succeeded at the NFL level. And I mean, I know like Barelissimo was talking in the chat about like he just has T-Rex arms and he can't handle power. And I think if you're still looking at Peter Skoronski as a tackle,
it's not happening.
Let me take a step back. If you want to try him at tackle and then let him fail to guard, fine. But to me, I'm not even entertaining that.
If you're going to say it's not an option. He's a guard.
Yeah, so he's a guard, and I don't even have a problem. I'm sure George is going to totally disagree with this because he's probably not as high as Skoronski as me. But I look at Skoronski, and I swear to God, I'm like, oh, this is Zach Martin. This is This is AVT. This is a guy of that ilk where if you draft Peter Skoronski, I would sleep like a baby that night because I have no question I got me a solid one. Again, best 5. Who are your best 5? Yeah. I know for a fact I got a player that can be one of my best 5 if I draft Skoronski. But I will say that took a massive hit the moment that you signed Nate Davis.
Right.
Because again, and there's been rumors that Skoronski can play center and, obviously can play guard. But to me, Skoronski would probably be the pick. But again, that's not nearly as clear as it used to be the moment that you sign Nate Davis and if you're trying to keep Tevin at right guard. And it sounds like they already have center plans with Cody Whitehair. The guy to me that's made a ton of sense that nobody's talking about, and I get it's tough because, again, cut your nose off to spite your face. You don't want to move Braxton. But if we're talking about a tackle that just strictly fits what this scheme does, it's Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is a mover. He's athletic as hell, pass blocks, run blocks extremely well. The problem with him is he's a left tackle over at Georgia, and I don't think that they're going to move Braxton over, where the case with Paris Johnson is Paris Johnson's already played the right side, has college tape of playing the right side. So I think that it's an easier transition there. And then, of course, you have the Ohio State comparisons and connection with Fields, and he's a good athlete. So to me, Paris Johnson seems probably like the pick. But I would say if we're just trying to piece together the top best 5 offensive linemen, Skoronski would be a guy that I'd take, and I'll figure out where to put him.
Chris, I feel like I haven't heard from you for a while, man.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry.
Is there anybody that you're looking at, like, we need to hit this in the draft? I know you don't know a ton of the prospects. Is there a position possibly that you're like, we need to hit this guy in the first round, I think, or trade back and grab?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised that some guys are sort of acting like we're going to take an lineman in the first round. I think really we still need to concentrate on that defensive line still. Maybe get like an edge rusher in the first round. But also as well, I think as well, I've got a feeling that they might take a running back, not in the first round, but maybe in the 3rd or 4th. And to bring in more competition. And I've heard, quite a few other guys on the network sort of mention that, the guy who the draft as running back might be the starter. So that'll be interesting to look out. But you know me, man, I just don't follow college football, so I just don't know the players' names. So I don't know these names. It's just a name to me. I'm just an NFL guy and a Bears fan. So, but it's always good education as well. Like I always, especially after talking to Jordan, man, I always feel like I've learnt a lot. So, yeah, I'd say DN really in the first round. Or obviously, it's just for me. I just want us to build from the trenches outwards. Because that to me always seems to be the best way of getting a well-rounded, balanced team. So anything on the D line or line, I'm quite happy with.
Yeah, I agree. I know Danny Shimon, they've been doing a lot of work with the Patreon page, him and Greg. I followed it myself. Let me run this little commercial, and then I'll talk a little bit about it if I can find it in here right quick.
Hey, my boy.
Go ahead, KB. I cut you off there.
Oh,
man.
no, you good, bro. I was trying to get it in before you hit the commercial. I said my boy Chris Wise look like straight out of England, boy. Straight out of England. Crazy motherfucker name C-Dub, boy. What you mean? I'm sitting there looking, I said, look how he got the hat to sit down his head with the hair, boy. Looking like Easy E over here.
It's Easy C.
Easy C, you feel me?
At my end, mate. It's always easy going where I am.
There we go. Good shit, man. Go ahead and talk, boy. I just want to get that out.
I just ran the commercial. If you're on Patreon, I believe the website is patreon.com/barroomdraft. For $5 a month, I think you get Danny's insight. And then for $10 a month, you get Danny and Greg. They've been going over a ton of prospects. I feel like they've put out videos almost every other day. Getting emails about them going over prospects, talking about how they fit with the Bears and specifically, and it's great. It's great insight for guys who, if you don't know draft prospects or you're not sure, and these are guys that were scouts and they watched the tape and they have good insight. I mean, they were the first ones I knew that called Tevin Jenkins as a guard. Definitely didn't see him as a left tackle like the Bears did. And it seems like they were kind of right. I mean, no scout is going to be 100% right on everything that they call, but those guys can give you a little more information than we do. Jordan's great on this, and he can give you some information as far as, he watches the tape as well, and stuff like that. But as far as really getting to know deep dives into these prospects, definitely check out our Patreon page, and we appreciate any of that for sure.
Can we end with just a brief segment on, again, and if it's just me, I'll rattle them off real quick, but general league-wide free agent winners, losers, if there's maybe a signing you liked or you didn't like, or, hey, this team, I hated it, saw the moves that they made and just couldn't stand it. I'll give an example. This one isn't on my list, but if you're like, cannot stand what the Rams are doing because they traded Jalen Ramsey for a third-round pick for a third-string tight end, and they're not doing anything, and, like that'd be an example.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hit those. Winner, hit a winner and a loser of free agency in your eyes, and then after that we'll hit the shout outs and try to get out of here. We've kind of been taking over for the draft, and I'm trying to save that as much as I can for the Sunday before the draft. We will be coming back and going live, and we'll talk about number 9 overall pick, or who knows, at that point maybe we've already traded it. So we'll talk a ton of draft on that day. But Jordan, since you've already touched on it a little bit, go ahead and start us off, and we'll go around the room this way, and I'll try to finish this up with winners and losers.
Man, it's funny, you're killing me because I got a lot of winners, but I'll leave I'll leave some for you all. To me, I'll say the names, but I won't go into any detail. Then if you guys pick them, just please expound on it. Winners to me are Atlanta, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Miami, and the Seattle Seahawks. And I guess I'll pick one to go in on. To me, it's Miami. I love what Chris Greer and the Dolphins are doing. To me, it's again, in this business, not that it always has to work this way, but you tend to be either you're going to fail or you're going to win by gambling the house on something. And I got to say, I give credit to Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel for having the cojones and the balls to bet the house on some of their moves. And so I think what they saw is, look, we're getting to the end of Tua's contract. We're going to have to pay him if we stay in, or we're getting a new quarterback. And I love everything that they did in the sense of, we're going to push all of our chips in. And so when you talk about the Rams, they traded for Jalen Ramsey for a third-round pick, and their third tight end had to give him a new contract. But again, we'll throw the money trying to fix this. Byron Jones was out last year as their second corner, and that hurt them. So now you're talking about a secondary with Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard being coached by Vic Fangio, somebody we all know very well.
Scary shit.
Mixed with Javon Holland, and I know they were trying to get Jordan Poyer, and that didn't work out. But that's their secondary. And then you just talk about some of the other moves that they did. They signed David Long, another former Titan, a middle linebacker that I absolutely love. David Long, to me, when he can stay healthy, is an all-pro level player. Who that's going to be their Roquan Smith in that defense. You have Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, these other space eaters in the front that if they can keep David Long free, I believe he's going to eat as a linebacker. And then you talk about Mike White. Mike White is a guy that I know is a joke to a lot of people and gets laughed at, but every time he's had a chance to play, I think he shows out. He is a perfect example of a second backup quarterback I wouldn't want on my team if I'm trying to say, like, my first guy's safe, because Mike White stood in there, takes hits, knows every snap is his last opportunity, so plays extremely well. You know that Tua has a health history issue, so White makes total sense. Has scheme familiarity there with that West Coast Shanahan-style offense. Should be a total fit. And then you talk about Deshaun Elliott. When I was talking about they were in on Jordan Poyer, that didn't work out as their second safety to go with Javon Holland. So then they just decided to grab Deshaun Elliott, who is a hammer in a world of nails. where he has a bit of a health issue too. And this is the thing: David Long health, Teron Armstead health, Tua health. Again, this is what I mean when I say they're taking all those big swing bets. But if they cash out and they pay off, you're going to have a secondary again with Deshaun Elliott even there as a guy that's going to be the enforcer, smacking people all over the place. So to me, I could wax poetically about a few teams and this team specifically, but the Dolphins to me are a team that I've really admired their free agent process this far.
Yeah, it's looked really good. I couldn't believe what they got Jalen Ramsey for, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So that was crazy to see that trade come to fruition. Chris, go ahead. Do you have any insight on free agent winner and loser?
I have no insight about anything. I'm only joking. The situation I really love, and there's a winner and a loser, is obviously Aaron Rodgers leaving the Packers. So that's a win for the Chicago Bears because he's out of our division at last. And the loser is the New York Jets because I can just see this completely imploding on them within a year. I think as soon as they get a period of bad results and how the media works in New York, they're absolutely going to tear Rodgers apart. He'll just throw his bib out of the pram and he'll just march off into the sunset. So that's my winner and loser is that the Bears were winning because we got finally getting rid of him, even though I would have liked us to beat him in a game. But B, the New York Jets fan, I mean, what the fuck? I thought they were sort of trying to build up nicely through the trenches and do it the proper way, and then they just got awful one. So, so that's my winner and loser, fellas.
Yeah, I mean, that's good insight, man. And I feel like a team that Jordan brought up, the Dolphins, this is probably how the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets felt like when Tom Brady finally left the division because he ran that division for so long. That's kind of how I feel about the Aaron Rodgers situation. And again, he's holding two teams hostage. The Packers can't make moves because they don't know what their future is looking like, and the Jets can't make moves because they don't know are they going to get Rodgers, are they going to get Lamar, they lost Mike White.
They're still trying to recruit Donald Driver and TJ Lang and
Jordan Nelson.
Oh my God, that kind of leads into where I was going with this because my losers were definitely the Packers and the Jets because for one, as much as we hate Aaron Rodgers and give him slack and all bullshit, if what he said was true, you can't pin this shit on Rodgers because how as an organization do you sit there and tell somebody to go ahead and seek a trade or do whatever the fuck the case may be, and then you don't have any kind of package or anything set up for the shit? Right. There's no way Aaron Rodgers is agreeing to deals with a team on the processes of a trade when there's no package in fucking order. Mm-hmm. Because now you got the Packers thinking they have the upper hand. No, you don't. You're trying to ship the man out. You've already said you want Jordan Love to be a starting quarterback. And then you have the Jets that have already sat there and said, well, if y'all don't want to ship him, then y'all can keep him. Right. Like, it's stupid as fuck to me. So both of y'all are held up bad because you can't make moves. That's your fault. So I had them as losers. Also, I was with Jordan. The Rams are losers for the simple fact of y'all gambled. You won your gamble in the beginning.
Right.
You trade away all your picks, brought in all these high caliber players, stacked the deck, and you won your Super Bowl. Congrats, congratulations, fanfare, all of that. But where does that leave you the next year? Where does that leave you the year after that? Where is that going to leave the rest of the franchise going forward? It looks bad. Now they're literally trying to push off everything. You have to trade away literally one of your top three players for pennies on the dollar. And you got a backup tight end. Like, bro, my man might not even make the fucking roster.
Right.
So,
well, and it kills me to say this, but now that I listen to KSR daily, and Colin Cowherd comes on right after him, so usually I catch some of his show. And man, that guy loves
Chris
to dog
Colin
the Bears.
Cowherd. You see how he was like, yeah.
That guy, he loves to dog the Bears, but
the definition of a wanker is that man, and we all know it.
Hey, I agree. I agree.
I can tell when you said Colin Cowherd, Chris was like,
I saw his face. Yeah, but he is in LA and he does have some insight, and he did say that
True.
a big reason that the Rams are doing what they're doing is Sean McVay said, "Yeah, I'll come back, but I need pieces on offense." So their idea was to trade away most of their defensive guys or let them walk other than Aaron Donald and try and get pieces on offense. Now, I don't know if they couldn't get a better deal for Jalen Ramsey, which would be crazy to me, or what the plan was there. But yeah, that's a messy situation out there in LA, in a town that has Jordan. You know, you live in Cali.
Yeah.
If you're not winning, they're not coming to the games. They got a lot more stuff they can do in the fall than go sit in a. It's a beautiful stadium, but go sit in a stand. How many times do we see when the Rams or the Chargers are playing? It's dominated by the other team's fan base because it's just a trip to LA for them. Whereas in there, like, you got to win or they're not going to come see you. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go down that road so much, but the Rams story is so interesting to me because I tend to believe that, kind of like KB was saying, like, a Super Bowl is important. That's what we all want. That's literally why we get together every week. So I can't really criticize them because they found a way to the finish line. But so again, I'm not here to be like, you guys suck, because fuck, those picks worked and they did win a Super Bowl. But every dog has his day, and the bill is due. Rent is due eventually. It is always due eventually,
and the rent's awful high there in LA.
The rent is high, and now they're having to go, okay, well, which that's what I'm saying. Like, when you think about it, they traded 2 first-round picks and more for Jalen Ramsey, and they got 4 years out of him, 4 good years. Now, last year was pretty bad for him, and I can get why maybe they're going, we want to be out early in the case he continues to go worse and we can't get anything more for him. But you traded 2 first-round picks for a guy, and 4 years later you're flipping him for a third and a backup tight end. Like, that's just – I don't know. Like, Dallas traded for Stephon Gilmore. You couldn't find another team to give you more than a third. It's just tough, and they're shedding it everywhere. Like, I actually thought they may have tried to keep Baker because I don't know how long Matthew Stafford is there for. Because they're going to need to. I don't want to say tear it down, but they're similar to like the Titans and a few other teams. They are clearly in this mode of we have to retool and figure out where we're going, because right now we've run out of avenues and options and off ramps. So we need to create a few off ramps by changing positions, shipping a few people off, and they're a unique team.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and hit mine. My big winner was the Cincinnati Bengals. I love what they did. Like I said earlier, I did not see Orlando Brown ending up with them. They also went and got Cody Ford from the Cardinals. So they're fortifying their offensive line. They already had a ton of pieces in place. I'm seeing here on CBS Sports that they re-signed Jermaine Pratt. I didn't know if they had him.
Yes, so they have.
Another piece where they keep him in the building. He plays really well for them. I still think they need to work on their secondary a little. Eli Apple, although he gets more criticism than I think he deserves, he's just not it, man. Maybe that's a guy that they end up in the draft grabbing a corner or something like that.
You see, they drafted Cam Taylor-Britt out of Nebraska in the second last year, and he played well when Chidobe Awuzie went down. So I think what they're hoping is this year, Chidobe Awuzie is back healthy. Cam Taylor-Britt plays opposite of him at CB2. Eli Apple's a reserve player, and this is my whole point, is they like to live in nickel under Lou Anarumo. So Mike Hilton is one of the best nickel corners in the league.
Oh, he's great when he's on the field.
If they could live in nickel, they would. And then this is why they've taken a lot of hard hits, like losing Jesse Bates and losing Von Bell hurts. But this is where, I'm gonna kind of sprinkle some extra seasoning on your pick, because I love what the Bengals have done. Love Duke Tobin. Keeping Jermaine Pratt is so important. If you're going to live in nickel, that means you only have 2 linebackers, and Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are those 2 linebackers for them, and they play exceptionally well, and they know the scheme. So keeping Jermaine Pratt there with Logan Wilson in that Anarumo defense, and then I understand you lose Jesse Bates. That's tough, but this is why Duke Tobin is such a master at this point. Drafted Dax Hill out of Michigan last year to groom into the position of Jesse Bates. They didn't want to lose Von Bell, but because they lost Von, if they couldn't pay both because of Joe Burrow coming up and T. Higgins. So if you keep Pratt, you lose Bell. If you keep Bell, you lose Pratt. They kept Pratt, lost Bell. Then they signed Nick Scott from the Rams. Nick Scott was a 7th-round pick, but had to play safety for them opposite Taylor Rapp when John Johnson left. and Eric Weddle's been retired. Nick Scott is a boomer, smart, fast player that lays the wood on people, kind of like a budget Deshaun Elliott. And I think, again, he's got to learn the scheme. He's got to learn to play with Dax Hill. I'm not saying it's going to work perfectly from the start, but to me, that is how you build and fill a team where, okay, you're going to lose pieces.
Right.
What are your avenues to plug the hole? And to me, the holes that Duke Tobin is plugging are just beautifully executed.
Yeah. And I like what their GM had to say at the combine when they were asking him about T. Higgins. He was like, if y'all want a T. Higgins, go find your own. He's got his guys back for sure out there in Cincinnati, and I like what they're building. As many know, if you're new to the show, I grew up a Bengals fan, so that's my AFC team, if I'm completely honest. So they still have a little place in my heart, and I love the way they've built that and became a contender. And it feeds right into my loser of free agency, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. Yep. What are they doing? They haven't figured out what they're doing with Lamar. They don't know what they're doing with Tyler Huntley. I don't think they've signed anybody. They let everybody hit free agency. Again, just like you said, Jordan, no, they didn't go after any receivers. They're not going out. I mean, they're just sitting on their hands. And I know Baltimore has a long history of drafting well and building through the draft and stuff, but you have holes on your roster. You have to fill them. Some of those have to be through free agents. I really like what the Bears did. I was going to bring them up as a winner, but being a Bears show, I knew that was going to be brought up from us. So I feel like we kind of covered that base. I'm really happy with what the Bears have done this offseason, and it's only just beginning. We still got the draft to go and all that. So let's go around the room and hit shout-outs, and I'll finish this up. I'll talk about some things coming up on the ballroom, etc., and then I'll close this out because my wife's been texting me saying she got lunch ready, so you boys hungry. Start us off, Jordan, and we'll go around the room one more time and get on out of here.
Yeah, of course. AC, KB, C-Dub, I appreciate you all. Hope you all have a wonderful and prosperous week. Thank you for having me on. Chat, Nomad, George, Foster, Shorty, Cornelius, Michael, anybody that's there, I appreciate you hanging out. Tony, even, I mean, everybody. So, and yes, even Don, who's a bit of a pain in the ass, but you gotta have that family member that is annoying to keep a little bit of rain to enjoy the sunshine. So thank you everybody for having me. It's been a true pleasure. Love talking football, Bears, and thank you for also obliging me by talking a little bit of outside Bears stuff because I just like the NFL and talking about different teams. So thank you everybody. You can find me at Jordan T. Silvera on Twitter, and I'll try to be around on Barroom a little more frequently when available.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'll get that link set up for the draft, and you're definitely gonna come on that one. You don't have a choice. Go ahead, Chris. Hit us shout outs and whatever else you want to say.
Yeah, shout outs is obviously to you boys. Best fucking day of the week, man. He's talking football with you lads, I'm telling you. And I always get an education as well because I don't really follow the college game, even though but I am a Kentucky fan. But it's always a good education for me because it would just be something else I have to pay for a subscription for. But you boys always make my week. Quickly, second is just everybody who's helped out with the Chris Watts GoFundMe to get my little white ass to America, to Chicago. I'm still blown away by the response and such kind words that people have said. I'm very appreciative and very humbled. And I just hope that when I get there, I can meet as many of you as possible. We can have a drink and a good chat. So yeah, they're my shouts. It's just such an amazing thing that we have in this network. It's not just about football; it's about camaraderie and being there for your friends. And I think that's what sets us apart from anybody else. We have the best fans in the world, Chicago Bears do, and what's going on for me just proves it. So thank you all, and it's very appreciative, and I can't wait to speak to you all again next time.
Absolutely. All right, go ahead, KB. Hit us with your shout outs, brother.
Oh man, shout outs to everybody in the chat. Shout out to my boy Foster Covers, man. Finally was on the podcast with him, Luke, Nomad. God, who was all on that damn podcast that night? God damn.
Triple R.
Shorty, Triple R, Jay, Man, shout out to all of them, man. It was a hell of a time, man. We had a blast just talking football, and like I said, that was at the height of my excitement. So I was really adamant that night. Shout out to y'all boys, man. It's great seeing Jordan on here, man. I love when you jump on the show, brother. You got so much knowledge, and like I said before, bro, you just so well. You just give it out to everybody, and I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Then I got my boys here to my right and up the top of me. You know what I'm saying? AC and Chris, man. Hey, it's what we do, baby. It's what we do, man. We here, baby. That's what we do. So shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Everybody that commented, said anything. Fuck Don Burr. And shout out to everybody else doing shows, man. We have so much content that's coming out, man. So much content that's given. It's a beautiful thing to see. You know what I'm saying? Things talking about basketball, football, baseball, movies. We do a little bit of everything, man. Everybody's show, man. It has that little spice, that little razzle dazzle to it, man. So like I said, always before, like I said, just stick with us, man. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that shit that YouTubers tell you to do, man. Love all y'all, man. Love all my boys on the panel with me.
Thanks, man. You took my job away, but I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely shout out to y'all, man. Jordan, it's great to see you this morning, man. I know it's bright and early out there in Cali, brother, but we do appreciate your insight, and you got things to say about everybody, man. I swear, like I said, we could bring up a 7th round pick, and Jordan's got anything to say about him, which is it's great for me to hear because I'm down here in SEC country. I know a little bit, but I don't see everything. You know what I'm saying? C-Dub, man, it was great to hear from you today and see you on my computer screen here. Like KB said, we came in Thursday and did our little show for you. I threw a little money at you, so
I gotta do that too.
Try to help get you over here. I think Mr. Shorty had put. Yeah, I think Mr. Shorty had put up. He's got to GoFundMe for Chris. If anybody wants to throw in a super chat in here, it'll go directly toward Chris to try and get him over to Chicago for a game. And now we've got a family member on the team. So definitely we got to get up there to Chicago and have a ballroom meetup this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. Shout out to everybody in the chat: Taurine, Triple R, Mr. Shorty, Nomad, Foster's. The Hart Foundation. This is the first time I've seen you in here, man. I grew up a wrestling fan, so I know what's up with the Hart Foundation. He's been throwing a lot of knowledge in this chat today. I don't know if he's a regular or if it's his first time coming into the ballroom, but we definitely got a bar seat for you right next to him, brother. And we could talk some old school wrestling because your boy. I wore my Stone Cold shirt the other day because it was 316. So I definitely I get down with that. But thanks for coming in and joining us. And just like KB said, man, we got you covered here at the ballroom. Aldo's hit me up and asked me if I would want to do a Cubs show this summer. My son's playing flag football, so I don't know if my schedule is going to match up with it to be able to do it, but we're definitely going to have a Cubs show. Of course, the South Burb Hitmen, they'll come back in and talk about all your White Sox needs with my boy. His name just slipped my mind as I was talking. Joe Mandel, he'll bring the boys in and talk about your White Sox. Vinny Parisi, that dude lives here online. He does a hockey show, he does a baseball show, he does all kinds of stuff. I definitely love that dude. Vinny Parisi is great. And if you're, the draft's coming up, we're less than a month away, right? So get on your Draft on Tap, hop on with Greg Gabriel. When Gabriel talks football, you'll get all your insight, talk about draft prospects, they might talk about some free agent guys that they're looking at. Greg seems to have connections with the Bears still because he knew something was happening before we traded the pick. He just didn't want to put the information out and then be wrong. So he was a little smarter about it than some of those other guys who would just put the information out and then be wrong. And then be like, well, this is what I had heard. So Greg's a little bit smarter. And he's been in the game for a long time. So he knows how all this works. But another great show, man. I love talking about free agents. We even got into a little bit of draft talk. And we'll come back the week before the draft, like I said, and we'll break down who we're looking at, what's going on with all them. And maybe the Sunday after. I know the last rounds are on that Sunday. So I don't know if we'll come back and do a recap at that time, or if we'll wait a week and kind of let it marinate a little bit. We'll figure all that out. But I guess I can talk about that off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, definitely shout out to everybody. It was great to see all your all's faces this morning. And we'll just leave everybody with hang on, let me find my outro here. We'll just leave everybody with a bear down.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down, everybody.
Head down.